right, let's see. We're in a weird spot because we're down a screen. So let's see if this is working. Okay, it looks like it is. Awesome. Been a minute since we've done a stream over here on YouTube. We've been doing a lot of Twitch streams and things for all of our gameplay. So I thought we would come back over here to YouTube. And we're basically, there's a lot of videos. And I thought I could make a standalone video for these. But I think these kind of reaction-based videos do better when I have all of you here with me. So if you missed it, also, hello, wow, so many people coming in. All right, how we doing, everybody? We have, from what I can tell, 4 separate videos released today. 3 from the D&D channel, 1 from D&D Beyond, as well as an article from D&D Beyond. Now, there also has been a variety of different people putting out videos because they got like some sort of thing with WotC, embargo-related stuff. So that's a cool thing that's coming out. I am not on that list as far as I know. We'll take a look, but I didn't see anything. Now, there's other stuff we could talk about in a little bit. But yeah, we've got a video, Player's Handbook 2024, everything you need to know, new weapon mastery, new feats, and then the new 2024 Player's Handbook reveal that's from D&D Beyond, as well as where to find the 2024 Player's Handbook previews. Looks like we've got Dungeon Dudes, D4, Pixel Circus, Ginny D, Mark Humes, Dale Kingsmith, Pointy Hat, Dungeon Dad, Jonathan Perez, Galvin, Pack Tactics, and Good Time Society all have different things for theirs. Yes, they are very much trying to build hype. I think there's something that I can tell you that isn't going to be much of an issue. Actually, so be on the lookout for this. Gen Con starts on a Thursday, right? That's typically when it starts. On Wednesday, there is usually like a party, like a WotC like invite party situation, which is pretty standard. But apparently there's going to be a press briefing on Wednesday at some point during the day, which I believe is the first time, at least in my modern experience with this, that they've done that, and your boy scored an invite to said press briefing. So I don't know what the scope of that briefing is. It's obviously going to be more previews, kind of like what we're talking about here. And we're obviously going to be, I don't know like what we're allowed to post and what we're allowed to say. It's still too early to go over that. So I don't know. But if I'm able to provide you as much information as possible from said press briefing, taking notes, live tweeting, whatever, I will definitely be doing that. So be on the lookout for that going forward. So yeah, thank you all for coming out and hanging out here. We're going to continue to go through these, and there's going to be more of these previews. I think every day this week we have a different preview. And I'm not sure how my schedule is going to work out, but my hope is to do those reviews or like live reacts like we're doing here, more or less right as those videos go live. I know I'll definitely be able to do that tomorrow. I think I'll be able to do that on Thursday and Friday as well. We'll have to see. We also don't know if more of these reveals are going to happen into next week as well, or is this just like a 1-week preview, or are we going to be getting weekly previews from now till the launch of the books in like late August, early September? They also are pre-orderable now over on D&D Beyond. I believe you can pre-order the Player's Handbook there as well. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead. You know what? Let's start by looking over at D&D Beyond, and we'll just look at the pre-order. We'll start there, and then we'll get into the videos. How's that sound? So here we go. We have Player's Handbook pre-order. Here you can see $29.99. Here, this is the digital-only version. Here is the physical version. Now, it doesn't... Yeah, release date is September 17th, 2024. So, go basically 2 weeks prior to that. So that'll be early September, maybe late August, depending. That should be possible. And you'll see it'll have all of the information that we kind of already knew, right? 12 classes. Each class gets 4 subclasses. So that's 48 subclasses. They've already talked about the 16 backgrounds. I believe the 10 species as well as the 75 feats. I don't think we had an official number on the number of spells. 391 spells, 51 monsters, 211 items, 3 magic items, and it is a total of 384 pages. Now, if you'll notice, there is also additional, here's the Dungeon Master's Guide as well, providing us with similar information here coming out in November, and a similar thing for the Monster Manual. By the way, feel free to chime in, throw out comments and things in the chat as we go through. These are all now available. Again, digital and physical options are available depending. You can add the digital for just $10 more. It also seems like it might be cheaper to get, because I thought the books were going up in price to $59.99. I remember reporting on that at one point. So perhaps ordering them from D&D Beyond, you're actually saving some money on the physical. And then again, for $59, you're going to get the digital as well. And again, free shipping on orders over $65. So if you're going to order multiples of these, assuming you want to, you'll be able to save a little bit on that. So I'll go over this one here real quick, this article as well, which is where to find these previews. Again, as it says here, if you want to be among the first players to see what's going on, here are a variety of creators that are showcasing core rulebook previews. Honestly, I might have been on this list where I'm doing a lot more consistent content, which I haven't been. I know that. That's on me. So that might have had me there. Or, you know what? They might have just had who they wanted to reach out to, and that's fine. And then again, we have the options here, again, talking about pre-ordering. You're also seeing new art. I believe this looks to be dwarf species art, would be my guess here. And then again, we have the variety of videos that we're going to take a look at here in just a sec. I'm going to pop back over here to chat. Let's see what we got going on over here. There's no way they can cover every class in a week, so I imagine. Well, what I mean is, are they going to cover every class? Because these videos aren't short, at least these first ones. We've got almost 3 hours worth of videos to go through. Yeah, I saw some people, I think Pack Tactics released their video as well. And again, I've talked about this, right? And that several folks on like creator insider kind of lists from WotC have been offered the opportunity to get access to the books in like digital form early for the purposes of making advanced content for release when things are ready to go and are live. Those things are under NDA, right? There's an NDA signed for it. There's an embargo that content, obviously the art and all these other kind of things can't be released until early access starts. Whatever time, I don't remember what the exact date is, but that's, again, we saw September 17th is the player's handbook date. So usually it's like 14 days or 12 days prior. So work your way back from that. It's probably like September 3rd time frame. We'll likely be able to, start posting things about that. So that'll also be stuff that'll be coming out later on. One of the pre-order pages mentioned something about the 3D virtual tabletop going into or out of closed beta. Yeah, that was something I wanted to talk about. It was on one of these. Okay, yes, good point. Let's talk about this. We will clip this into its own separate, probably shorts video. But let's go ahead and pull up this because it's worth definitely mentioning. Because this is something else this is something I'm actually really hoping to get information out of WotC at Gen Con, depending on who's there. Pick up the digital and physical core rulebook bundle to save $60, get free shipping, and snag these exclusive digital bonuses: the Dragons of D&D digital art book, the D&D Beyond gold digital dice set, and the 50th anniversary gold dragon mini releasing with the closed beta of the upcoming 3D virtual tabletop. Now, that is, as far as I can tell, and from what a lot of you are saying, kind of echoing my thoughts, we haven't heard anything about the virtual tabletop in a while. So for those of you who are unawares, it was kind of announced at the D&D Direct last year. Those of us who got to go out to the Content Creator Summit in April got to experience it firsthand. Several of us were involved in like a closed alpha at a point where you were able to give access to certain people to let them go in and try it. And I basically got to run an adventure kind of within the same sort of setting that I played in at the WotC headquarters. So I got to play around where a DM kind of guided us through it, and then I got to run one with like a group of my friends that I invited in for the closed beta or closed alpha to do that. And then at PAX Unplugged last year, they had it on site, and for the first time, they had the virtual tabletop builder available. Previously, we never had that. We'd always had just like a predetermined scenario with, you could, drag and drop and add miniatures and figures to the map, but you couldn't actually build anything. I did test that it did have functionality with D&D Beyond. When I played around on the alpha, I just made up a character on D&D Beyond and then was able to import it and tie it directly to a token for somebody to play, which was pretty cool. But we never had access to the actual builder to build 3D maps, or I think it does 2D as well, but basically to build 3D maps. And I got a chance to play around with the virtual tabletop at the builder side of it at PAX Unplugged. And from I only got maybe 15 minutes in it, but it was very intuitive, and I was very easily able to build a map that kind of got up the point across. I was building like I wanted to do sort of like a temple dungeon kind of area with some lights and different like scatter terrain and stuff around. And I was able to do that pretty easily, which was pretty impressive, I think. But we also haven't heard about it since then. And if you recall, the end of the original timeline, the end of last year, was supposed to be closed beta access for D&D Beyond subscribers to the virtual tabletop, with again, the time frame for the official launch was still kind of out there, but it was, at least by this point in 2024, closed beta to D&D Beyond subscribers was supposed to have happened, and to my knowledge, that has not happened. So I'm hoping that Cale Stutzman, who's kind of the lead of the virtual tabletop, is going to be at Gen Con, and then I can just ask him in person what the status is. Super chill dude. Big fan of the channel, which is always fun. And we had a pretty good conversations over at Unplugged. We had a pretty good conversation out at the Content Creator Summit as well. So I'm hoping that he'll be there and that we can talk through some more virtual tabletop to get you guys some more information on what's going on. But as I said, this seems to be the first mention of the upcoming 3D virtual tabletop in any form of media that I've seen that hasn't been people just remembering what happened or speculating about what it will be like or when it will be released. So yeah, I guess it says the 50th anniversary Dole Dragon Mini releasing with the closed beta of the upcoming 3D virtual tabletop. So that must be, so does that mean that that's launching with the digital bundle in September? That would be a smart move, right? To get your, at least, I mean, obviously you'd want to be in full production if you could by the time of the release of your new 2024 books. But if you couldn't do that and you were able to release like the beta version of it, then that would make sense to me to release it around the same time frame. So that's what I'm reading. It could be that possibly, these do say specifically D&D Beyond Gold digital dice set. So my thoughts are that means that's for D&D Beyond, because I was going to say you could have possibly custom 3D dice for the virtual tabletop. That's not an uncommon thing as well. Let's see what you guys are saying over here. Okay, also guns are confirmed in the new PHB. Yep. I think they said that in some of the earlier videos, or some of the content that I think at Gen Con last year, they had said that that was going to be a thing. They also were listed in all of like the weapon previews, like the weapon mastery previews and things. We gotten in the Unearthed Arcana had the pistol and the musket as a base weapon, not like a specialty thing. September 3rd, if you have the Master D&D Beyond, tier D&D Beyond. Okay, so September 3rd, 14 days prior, which tracks with history. So that should be when early access goes live, and possibly when the virtual tabletop closed beta will go as well. I'll probably use maps more than I use the 3D virtual tabletop. Yeah, I'm going to do a video on D&D Beyond maps in the near future here. I've been using it for my Wednesday stream when I do Phandelver and Below. I've been using maps just because, like, I was going to just do all Theater of the Mind, but there is obviously issues you run into, which I'm sure all of you have, especially in a digital game where positioning on the map becomes critical. For, you know, does a move hit, how does a fireball land, or that kind of a thing. So with that, I've been using D&D Beyond maps, especially it's easy because Phandelver and Below is in D&D Beyond maps. And I'm enjoying it quite a bit, so we will definitely make a video on my thoughts on it. And, like, it might just be like a stepping stone to get to the 3D virtual tabletop. We'll see. You don't have to pay just to use it all, right? There's just some things to pay for. I think we're not sure at this point. Thank you, Roll for Combat. Appreciate your update there. Let's see. So somebody said something about Gen Con. Do you think they will release them early at Gen Con like they did Glory of the Giants last year? It's possible. I don't think so. I feel like they'd have to... Wouldn't you want to say that to hype that up at this point? But maybe not so much. Because, right, so the books are set to launch in early access end of September. Gen Con is beginning of August. So that's a 1 month difference. It's possible there may be a small portion of them available for release at Gen Con, which would be wild to see if that's the case. But yeah, Roll for Combat, if you want to hit me up after or send me a message or something, we'll definitely chat about that. Where do you get this pre-order? It's right here on D&D Beyond. You can just go right up here to their marketplace. And then here you go. Here, basically the first thing that pops up on the marketplace. You could do the digital bundle here. Digital and physical core rulebook bundle. Actually, we didn't look at that. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. $180 will get you... Was that all of them? This is all digital and all physical is $180 for everything. You can also get, looks like, an all digital or an all physical bundle if you prefer that over the combo. And then again, that'll obviously give you the access to the things we were just talking about. Okay. So we said we were going to talk about the previews. We're going to go ahead and watch these videos. We're definitely going to watch them on at least some degree of increased speed. As we know, 1.5 times speed is almost indistinguishable from regular speed. So just so we don't spend forever here.
Largest player's handbook the game has ever had.
This is everything you need to know. Right? So let's just make sure you guys can hear it before I go too much further.
Rebuilt.
Let's shrink these sliders down so we can see what we're doing here.
From the ground.
Okay, cool. Now we're going to turn up our speed here. Playback speed, we'll go 1.5 times for now.
Ground up. It is filled with new options as well as returning options that have been refined, reimagined, rebalanced. And the whole book has also been restructured
blurred out a little bit too.
Reference at the table to make it easier than ever before to create a character. And we have also packed it with enough new options that even people who have been playing this game for a decade will find whole new ways to customize their characters, you know, between the different class features, the subclass options, the new feats, the new equipment options, the new crafting rules, the new spells, the revised spells. You combine all of that, and this is like having the game that you were already playing completely like glowed up. It says it's just top to bottom has been improved.
It's been very distracting for me because I should be doing my work and doing research, but I'm mostly looking at different character builds now, using like weapon mastery or how sneak attack works, because there's a lot of systems in this, but it's very simple at the same time. Like it has a momentum as you're reading it and an excitement.
And that really gets at one of our core goals, which was streamline as much as possible while also trying to make it easier than ever before to engage with the game while also making it deeper.
So a couple things. One, I want to point out, take a look at how crazy the art is. The art in here is absolutely fantastic. This is obviously all players' handbook related art. You'll be able to notice, I'm sure you could just see that one before, looked like it was either Magic Missile or Mage Armor or both. A lot of art in these books about different spells being cast, so you can see what the spells look like to some degree. For the questions about the Nintendo Direct, yes, I watched the Nintendo Direct today. Pretty exciting stuff in there. Although I was not a huge Metroid Prime fan myself. I'm more of a side-scroller guy. And it is like the PF2E remaster. It is very, very similar vibes in my mind to the Pathfinder 2E remaster. That's like the same kind of general tone that it's giving to me compared to the other one, so I would agree with that. And did I receive one of the advanced copies? Yes, I did. I mentioned this before, that I have them for the purposes of making advanced review stuff for when they release later in the year.
Giving you more ways to imagine your character, more tactical options. We especially focus when it comes to tactical options on making the weapon experience more rich. So if you're playing a weapon-focused character, you are going to have a level of
Do you guys see the art, though? It's just fantastic.
tactical excitement that your character never had before. You're going to find ways of, from level to level, evolving how your character plays, because just shifting from using the mastery option of one weapon to using the mastery option of another is going to
The art is so good. Look at this.
sometimes subtly change how the game plays for you, and then other times not so subtly. It will be a dramatic shift. Now, people who focus more on the magic end of the spectrum are also going to find, when they dive into this massive spell chapter, over 100 pages long, close to 400 spells, many revised, a number brand new, some returning from books like Xanathar's Guide and Tasha's Cauldron, but even those reimagined. But
The
also,
art
they're
is
going to
so
have
good.
non-combat options that they didn't have before, ways to enrich their social interaction scenes, their exploration scenes.
Look at this. Look at this art. Yeah, some people are bringing up the concept that, yeah, it looks like MTG card art. I mean, kind of makes sense, right? You own both. Why not employ that same kind of art style? Obviously, Magic the Gathering art. I could be wrong, but I would say out of most of the modern D&D art, I don't feel like there's a lot of people like really clinging. Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. People, like, a lot of people have nostalgia and love for classic D&D art, like older art from older editions, and a lot of people have a deep love for a lot of the different MTG card art. I don't know that many people that are super in love with the existing 5e art. Now, maybe this is just one of those perspective things where not enough time has passed for people to be nostalgic about a piece of art or really taken in by it, but people are from Magic the Gathering art, and from Magic the Gathering art from the start of when it's released. So tapping into that sort of vibe for the art for your player's handbook, and presumably for your monster manual and Dungeon Master's Guide as well, just kind of makes sense to me. Because I would say a lot of, to somebody's point in chat here, right, the crossovers, I do feel like the crossover books do a very good job, but they're usually also sampling card art to some degree from the cards when you're like pulling in Theros, right? You've got card arts for Theros sets and things like that.
In ways that they couldn't before. And then we did the same with our weapon-focused characters. Again, something that people got
This is another thing. Check this art out.
to see as a part of the Unearthed Arcana process, that we made sure that classes that
So we had art of showing players and characters, which is pretty cool.
before, like say the Barbarian, that were primarily combat-focused, now have ways to contribute outside combat. There was no corner of the game that we did not zero in on as we built this new player's handbook, and as we build the new Dungeon Master's Guide and the new Monster Manual. Every part of the game, whether it...
Look at a dragon. Actually, no, I think this might be a wyvern. Looks like there's a curled up tail. I think that's a stinger over on the side there.
Relates to the combat pillar, the exploration pillar, or the social interaction pillar, has gotten a fresh coat of paint with new ways to play, and in some cases,
It looks
surprises
so
that people didn't even
good.
get to see as a part of the Unearthed Arcana process. A great example of that in the player's handbook are the brand new crafting rules.
There were always moments in the last 10 years of playing the game. You sometimes would find a moment, I wish I could do this, or I could wish there was a rule for that. Well, now there is. Like, if I wanted to use my sneak attack to knock out a target, rather than kill them, that's there now. Like, as a barbarian, if I want to feel like I'm channeling something primal in myself and maybe use my strength score to actually inform like perception or stealth, there's a moment where you can do that, and that's why I'm so obsessed with making new combos. But what's the most exciting thing for you, Chris?
It's hard to nail down. There's a lot of things. I love how information has been reorganized in the book so I can find things easier.
Again, we've got, see, this is a slightly different style of art as well.
The rules glossary, I think, is going to be a huge...
But also, very clearly, this looks to be Ravenloft, right? You've got this symbol of Ravenkind or whatever right here in this one character's hand. So we're also, looks like we're seeing art from not just Faerun in here, which is pretty cool.
Huge boon to a lot of players, having a centralized place where all the rules are very clearly and concisely defined. But on a more selfish level, I am delighted by the weapon mastery properties. Jeremy and I were in a game recently where I was playing a fighter, but we were playing basically 2014 characters. And having play tested the weapon mastery stuff for the better part of a year now, it was a bit of a shock to go back to a fighter that didn't have that. And I think a lot of players who like hitting things with weapons are going to be as delighted as I have been. I feel playing a fighter without it now rather naked and exposed.
But it is like a remarkable feeling. Like you have, it not only drives, like I'm swinging a sword, but I'm also doing this. Like maybe I'm using this weapon, maybe I'm knocking you back.
Again, great art. I'm loving this just like dragonborn monk in the background with these kind of almost like antler horns coming off the top. Really cool design.
I missed, and I'm still grazing you and doing damage, and you're making now choices that make those weapons important. Like if you're using a scimitar, a dagger, if you're using a heavy cross.
Also, look at this. There's artwork, what seems to be for every single weapon. So no questioning what like a musket would look like in D&D or a short bow versus a long bow.
So there's an advantage to it. It has a tactic to it.
Art for everything.
Like I can't imagine martial classes without this now.
Yeah, I think one of the amazing things about this opportunity to revise the books is we can do more wish fulfillment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we're building on a system that is sound and tried and true and that people love. We can now take 10 years of feedback of, oh, I wish the game did this, or I wish this class did that, and deliver on those wishes.
It also means that with the core rules in the book, so, in addition to all the fun character options and whatnot, well, the rules...
I also am loving this new Kobold art. Look at this. It's beautiful.
rules themselves that run the game have also been enhanced, where we were able to take things that maybe have been house rules for
Here's, again, we've seen this art before, but it's the cartoon
people over
characters
the past
here.
10 years and make them a core part of the game. Great example of this. Many people over the last 10 years have allowed people to drink potions as a bonus action, feeling it was way too punishing, running the rules as they were written in 2014, to have to spend your entire action drinking a potion. Particularly scary if you're dying and you're drinking that healing potion. And so people are going to find that now healing potions take a bonus action to drink. And there are...
That's another thing that, again, the game... players informing the game, right? Potions are now canonically, at least in these books, a bonus action to drink. Almost everybody I know uses potions as a bonus action. And now it's a canonical thing because it's basically been so... It's so funny to see where these things that basically have become almost like accepted rules at a table are now informing the decisions of the game because so many people are like, well, we're going to just throw that rule out. And if WotC knows that we're just going to throw that rule out, why not just make that the rule so that you can just get around that?
Shifts like that.
There's cheering happening right now while this video is playing.
Yeah, and there are shifts like that everywhere you look in the rules, that it will feel like the game you've been playing, but everywhere you look.
Now, how about that Black Dragon art, huh?
Enhanced.
How about that? Now that is epic art. Look at that.
As you are looking through the player's handbook, as you're making your character, there's such intentional design behind everything. Every piece of art, the layout. I can flip through this book and in seconds know where I am.
All of those choices were very intentionally made. Often with our books, what we typically do, we will write and then we will sort of later in the process begin working with the book's art director to come up with how the book is going to look. In this case, the art directors, Emi Tanji and Josh Herman, were a part of the conceptualization of the book from the very beginning.
The text and art has just completely gone hand in hand throughout this whole process. The art style hasn't changed because we still have a lot of amazing returning D&D artists come back to join us in this adventure. They have such a wonderful sense to bring in their own experiences and their own takes on our art orders. So I mean, like, we truly did do it with intention, but we can't take all the credit because it's also the partners we work with that take it, beyond into the next level.
There's a lot of stuff that went into the covers. We kind of wanted to approach them all up as a set. So working with Tyler Jacobson across all three was a really great experience.
Here they are all next to each other. I like it a lot. I've seen a lot of comments from a lot of people who don't like the cover art. I like it a lot personally.
because he had also done the covers before, so when at least he had done the Player's Handbook and he had done the Dungeon Master's Guide in 2014. So we got a chance to kind of reapproach them with a different perspective and what we wanted to do and try to figure out what that was.
It's not 2.5 actually, or 2 times. It's actually 1.5 times speed, because honestly, we're gonna be here for 3 hours, probably at least. It would be closer to 5 if we were to watch these videos at full speed, because there's 4 videos to go through today. So we're speeding it up a little bit. It's honestly not that noticeable when it's Chris, Jeremy, and Todd Kenrick talking.
And we definitely referenced second edition, and Easley Elmore, that sort of original D&D artwork. We wanted to kind of bring back some of that flavor, especially in the shape language and the colors and sort of just the compositions, and to kind of evoke a little bit of that classic fantasy vibe, right? So hopefully all 3 of the covers are going to give you a little bit of that.
And for the new Player's Handbook, the art we have here, these are some famous D&D heroes. And you've got the Gold Dragon, and you've got...
You can also see the different change in the kind of red-looking kobolds on the right side there. Beautiful.
the Red Dragon below, and the most vicious-looking kobolds I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Probably in D&D.
Yeah.
But there's like, it's a moment. It is a moment in time. And that's something we've talked about before with all the art that is in the new Player's Handbook, is it always feels like almost like a photo in a moment of an adventure. Whether it's right before something happens or the apex of something happening, but it feels like a day in the life of an adventurer.
And that's intentional, right? We wanted to provide storytelling in all of these images. We wanted to give you, the players, the fans, an image, like you said, that is a snapshot in time. But ideally, we try to
check out this clearly paladin art with a sunblade. Look at that.
focus that snapshot in time right before an event has happened or right after an event has happened. Like you said, the Gold Dragon and the Red Dragon and sort of this party in the middle and the kobolds coming from the side and what is going to happen, who's going to win, right? Same thing if you look at like the monster manual, like very much in the thick of it.
If it is chunked up videos, then that's great. Then this will be shorter. I'm surprised they usually don't separate their videos like that. So if that's the case, then we'll save ourselves some time.
But right before the real action happens.
Buster, has there been any talk on how long this current version of D&D is going to be valid? According to WotC, forever. Basically, 2024 is, again, to some people echoed back earlier to say it's more, the 2024 books / 2025 books are more like the Pathfinder 2e remaster. I know that doesn't really mean a lot to people who only play D&D, but it is supposed to be truly backwards compatible. We will have to do some deep diving into how realistic that is. Because in theory, what they've been touting from the beginning is that you could sit down at a table with people playing 2014 versions of the characters versus with players playing 2024 versions of the characters. Now, they had originally mentioned the concept of having like a rules glossary or like a something in there that would give you transition information that, like, hey, if you want to play at a table, maybe you just place, isolated as 2024, 2014, that's how it is. But maybe to bring things into parity, you need to give like the 2014 character a feat at first level that's kind of derived from like the backgrounds, because obviously we now know that all backgrounds in this new version of 5e provide a feat. Now, granted, there are a smaller parsed down list of feats. They're not all of the feats, right? So for example, the 2024 one, you can't take feats that give you a bonus to an ability score of any kind. So like that might be all it is, right? It's just you're playing a 2014 version of character, just make sure you give them a feat as part of their background to kind of match what the 2024 characters will have. Or it might be just like, I don't really know what it's going to look like, to be honest. What this sort of, if there is going to be any transition language that's released in form of like a PDF or an errata, or maybe it's contained in the book itself to some degree, I'm not sure what we'll ultimately see. But at the very least, we're going to dive into it and see, because also, as we know, there are several subclasses that are being left in 2014 that aren't making the update to 2024. Now, I do feel like it behooves WotC to update those subclasses in a future player source book. But that might be some of the stuff we're going to do basically right at the start once things go live, is work on how we would take something like the Tempest Domain Cleric, which won't be coming forward, and then how we would update that to be the 2024 version of the Tempest Domain, stuff like that. Smaller videos or deep dives. Thank you, Landon. You can play the 2014 characters with the 2024 rules, but you can't play the 2024 characters with the 2014 rules. Yeah, pretty much. It says people are saying they're going to explain it. Any word on when they're going to update the SRD? I would imagine they did say after all of the new books are out, so that it's kind of a piece, like a one-shot update to the SRD, not like a piecemeal version of it. I'll see if I can ask at Gen Con if we can get more information on that. Yeah, Tasha's Guide 2, Xanathar's Guide 2, something like that. Player's Handbook 2, realistically. We could do it. Anyway.
Right? Like almost like at the end of round 1 in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the rest of the fight going to be? The person that gets picked up by the tentacle is your unlucky party member for sure. Probably happens to them every game all the time. And then on the DMG, you've got sort of we very much also reference previous editions with the cover of the door being opened, right? So what does it look like inside of the door? What could that DM be prepping you for? What is that set case or that show piece that you're going to be facing? So with the DMG cover, you've got sort of your multiple casts of characters, all the way from your grunts down to your skeletons to Avenger, sort of your campaign level villain, or Warduke and sort of like almost a henchman mini boss of a campaign, right? And then you've got a looming threat in the back. So something that has a lot to look at that you can pull a lot of storytelling out of, hopefully, was very intentional for all 3 of these.
There was so much planning that went ahead before these subclasses art because there's, 48 of them?
Yeah.
And Josh Herman and we just both worked on this job.
Another great Dragonborn, or a lot of Dragonborn love. Looks like over here, if you look at this side, Ant Sorcery. So I'm going to guess that based on the Psychic Stones, this is Aberrant Sorcery. But yeah, a lot of Dragonborn art love, and a lot of very unique Dragonborn art. We're seeing a lot of distinguishing features, whereas we kind of had the sort of muddled brown gold Dragonborn that was very popular in 4th edition, kind of what was shown in the 2014 stuff. We are getting very unique, chromatically bright, different colored Dragonborn in this book, which I really like.
Giant matrix of like the characters. Okay.
Again, here we've got a silver Dragonborn over here on the left. This is clearly the middle's very clearly the Bard, right? That's Gem and the Holograms, basically, the Bard character. I'm going to guess this is maybe a Ranger over here on the left. This Dragonborn looks like they might have winged boots. Also, they look like they're wielding one of Drizd's swords over here in the back. And then I'm going to guess this is some kind of a monk, maybe 4 elements monk, right? We see fire, we see lightning, something like that. Yeah, very Dazzler vibes as well.
Are we covering our tieflings? Are we covering our halflings? Like make sure that
lots of very tiefling art we've seen as well, which I like.
We just have a wide variety of characters we want to show because 48 that's pretty spectacular, And then to also make sure they complemented the classes as well. So some that leaned into the tropes and others that kind of were a nice, unique new spin. An example of how I hope this art will inspire others is that I've never wanted to really play a spellcaster. I'm like, it's too hard. It's just so much you have to manage, and I'm sure it's not. But then I saw some of the warlocks, like, holy moly, like the wizards. I'm like, okay, I would absolutely jump into playing a character like that. And I'm hoping that's what this art will do to.
Yes. Every class gets 4 subclasses in this book.
Inspire some of our players.
We mapped out not only the subjects we wanted portrayed in the art, but the style of the art in each chapter. And so that's why when you look at the character creation chapter, there's line art, because we wanted you to have this sense of when you're making a character, you're like almost writing with pencil. And many of us, when we're making a character, will change our minds a bunch of times, whether we're making the character on D&D Beyond or, typing it on our laptop or writing it with paper and pencil, we'll think, we'll change, we'll go back. And so we wanted the art itself to subtly point at that process, which is why in that chapter you have the line art. But then when you get to your class chapter, where you're
here's that sweet Dragonborn monk art again.
Making the most important choice for your character's class, you are just dazzled by full-page pieces of art for every class, by key pieces of art for
great druid art over here.
Every single subclass. Then it keeps going in terms of the beauty when you then get to the character origins chapter and you see the different backgrounds available to your character.
And they're literally back.
So this is the art for the character backgrounds, which are quite literally, as they're going to say, a background you might find your character in.
They're literally backgrounds.
I love that the most, because you're not interjecting a character to describe hey, this is what Charlatan looks like. You're just giving, this is the green screen background that your character will be inserted into.
Yes.
Right?
But also, more than that, the backgrounds themselves have all been redesigned, and the entire
point to a fact here, right? You can see it'll tell you kind of ability score choices. It'll show you options for feats because, again, as we talked about, feats are tied to backgrounds here. Skill proficiencies. Everybody gets skill proficiencies, 2 of them, and everybody gets either, I think, a tool proficiency. I don't know if some also get languages still, but like, so everybody's going to get a little bit of something here.
Entire background system has been reimagined as one half of your character's origin, the other half being your character's species, and the two together interlock to give you a view
This taco in the middle here.
of who your character was before they became an adventurer.
And
But
it's very intentional because you get a feat based off your background and skills on top of that. And that free feat really informs, like, well, of course, I would have this feat starting off because this is the background I come from. That makes perfect sense. I just like how that's tied together. And that also informs the ability scores.
Yes, and I know we'll be digging deeper into character origins in one of our other videos. But one of the major changes for backgrounds is exactly that they now give you an ability score bonus, or rather set of bonuses. And this is actually going to be new even for people who were part of the Unearthed Arcana process, because in the final version of the backgrounds, each background now lists 3 ability scores. And if you select that background, you then choose how you want to distribute your bonus there. So you can either have +2 in one of them and +1 in another, or you can have +1 in all 3 of them. And so you have a tremendous amount of flexibility to pair different backgrounds with different classes, because what we wanted to do is make it so that the backgrounds were as flexible as possible to support as many different character concepts as possible.
How have you meddled with the player's handbook? I don't think, what's a nicer way
To that point, yeah. So that's how we are dealing with. I'm going to get.
What'd you do?
We have all of your ability scores are tied now to your backgrounds. I don't necessarily like that myself. That is kind of, I believe, how Pathfinder does it as well. I think that is one point in my mind kind of in favor of Tales of the Valiant, where like we know we're going to give you a +2, +1, or a +1 to 3. I don't necessarily need it hard tied to a mechanic. We could just build that into the process, right? When you're determining your ability scores, then once you've kind of got your final set, whether that's point by or rolling or what have you, then just increase 1 by 2 and 1 by 1, or increase 3 of them each by 1. I get the concept of tying it to the background though, and honestly, it definitely makes more sense in my mind to tie the ability score improvements to a background than it does to like the race or in this instance the species, because more, I'd say a lot of the time, right, how you're raised and what you do will more inform potentially. I mean, obviously genetics are a part of it, when we could argue this for hours, but more about like how you're raised and what you do, right? It can inform how, your ability scores improve one way or another. So for the purposes of having to tie it to something mechanically to just give that an avenue rather than just having it as part of the stat creation, I think backgrounds are definitely the way to go ultimately, but I feel like you don't necessarily need to tie it to anything.
You on the player's handbook.
Well, let's see. Jeremy and I were in the room hashing out the outline for the book with our good friend and former boss Ray Winninger early on. So I had a hand in sort of sculpting the shape of the book with Jeremy leading.
Shout out to Ray. You will be missed.
That work, of course. And then I injected myself at various points everywhere I could, creating new spells for the spells chapter, rewriting text from the 2014 book to make it suitable for the 2024.
Here's more of that character and player art here.
Revision.
Oh, hang on. Take a look at this. Ready for this?
The 2014 book to make it suitable for the...
Do we see how over... Oh, you can't see because I'm in the way. Hang on. Let me just move me or turn me off. Do you see how there's a character on a laptop with a webcam here? So, like, we're really embracing the fact that while D&D in its primary purpose is physical and at the table, there is a character over here who's on the laptop. So they are kind of just also in that aspect addressing, like, people, virtualing into the game, which I think is pretty cool. All right, let's keep going.
2024 revision.
All 3 of the books we mapped out, Chris, Ray, and I, we mapped out together. And what people are going to see when all 3 books are out is that intentionality that you talked about, Todd, that we not only carefully plotted out the player's handbook that you've now seen, but also very carefully plotted out the Dungeon Master's Guide, and very carefully plotted out the Monster Manual, and plotted out how the 3 books integrate with each other. And so in many ways, we view the 3 books as one massive book that's simply too big to publish.
And here we go. So I have to do, people want me to do a separate video on just the covers. I've done like reviews or reveals of the covers in the past. People want me to do a separate video on this, and I likely will. So I'm a sucker for, you give me a limited edition anything, I'm a buy it. And maybe I'm what's wrong with society and collecting and gamers and things like that, but I need it, right? If it's a collector, you slap limited edition, collector's edition on that thing, I have to have it. It's just how I am, right? You know, whether it's some sort of $300 thing that comes with a headset or like a mask or a helmet or a statue, I need that in my life for whatever reason. Whether that's, you know, like the where is it? Here it is. Like the Baldur's Gate, right? We pull this guy up here. Whether it was like the collector's edition of Baldur's Gate that came with this cool statue, or, you know, somewhere around here in the other room, I have some like old Gears of War statues. I have a night vision headset from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. That kind of, I need the collector's edition thing. I have to have it. So I have to have these limited edition covers without a doubt, right? That's just how I am. Now, I personally love all 3 of these. I will agree with the people who did say that the Monster Manual does feel like the least amount of effort, if you will, right? I think the Player's Handbook is phenomenal. I love this art. It is very evocative of the collector's edition of the Tasha's Cauldron cover that we saw. I'm loving the very unique artistic style taken with the gold dragon in the artwork. I'm assuming it's Lulth. I think that might be confirmed on the front cover of the Dungeon Master's Guide. But she also looks almost like, obviously she looks evil because she's webbing up this person, but also kind of looks benevolent, or she's just enjoying herself so much. I don't know. And honestly, we just talked about Baldur's Gate 3 a second ago with the collector's edition. How are you not going to have a Mind Flayer on this, right? I mean, it's... For people who didn't know what Dungeons and Dragons are, Mind Flayers are now iconic to them because of Baldur's Gate 3. So putting a Mind Flayer on the front cover of your book is going to immediately draw people to it who didn't know anything about D&D prior. It's awesome. I love the artwork. It is very much that same kind of popped collar look that a lot of the Baldur's Gate 3 Mind Flayers have. In fact, again, presenting the tadpole for Ceramorphosis. I still like it. I feel like prior to Baldur's Gate 3, a Beholder is more iconic to Dungeons and Dragons than a Mind Flayer. But in a post-BG3 world, I guess you really had no options. It just feels like the other ones are a lot more like scene, like it's showing you a scene. Whereas this is just showing you a monster, if that makes sense. Let's see. Let's see what you guys have to say about this. Marketers love this one weird trick. Yeah. The weakest of the 3. Monster Manual's the weakest of the 3. Yeah, I agree. They look like they just took the Emperor from BG3 and put him on the cover. Yeah, I see that too. We did talk about the virtual tabletop, Aaron. I will break that out into its own video at a later point. But yes, it seems like it might be coming in September, at least a closed beta based on what the article says. The best one is the DMG, hands down. The regular one is a Beholder, so something like a Mind Flayer makes sense. I guess that's true. I mean, I guess because like there's the gold dragon on the front cover of the Player's Handbook and a gold dragon on the front cover of this version of the Player's Handbook. So I thought we were going to see a similar vibe for each, but we didn't have Lulth at all on the front cover of the DMG, and she's front and center here. So, all right, let's continue on here.
as a single volume because it would be about 1,000 pages long.
And that speaks again to the intention of design on all of this. It is remarkable to see how these are all interconnected. I mean, this is an amazing day because this is the first day you can pre-order all 3 books. What I've seen of the DMG is so much friendlier to a new Dungeon Master, and what I've heard is so exciting. And everything I've heard about the Monster Manual. And it does feel like this is one cohesive project in a way that we haven't seen before.
It's so cohesive that there is essentially a piece of the Monster Manual in the player's handbook.
Right.
We were able to coordinate the work in a way that we had never done before, where that was essentially Monster Manual work we were doing as a part of our player's handbook work, building the creature appendix that is in this player's handbook. The new creature appendix is even bigger than the one that was in the 2014 PH. The creatures have been carefully selected to be in the player's handbook.
So pseudo dragon art
intentionality. Now, when you go to the equipment chapter
that looks
and
to be
you
the
see a
same
list of
art.
available mounts, well, every one of those mounts now has a stat block in the
Again, new art looks like maybe half orc or orc art.
same book. And similarly, when it comes to your familiar options, if you cast Find Familiar, or if you're a warlock with your enhanced familiar options, all those
Y'all. Can we talk about the owl and the top hat?
options are present. We also made sure that druids
How about the green leafy weasel?
had a really good starting selection of creatures that they could transform into using wild shape. Now, our friends who use the Circle of the Moon subclass, they're still going to need to visit the Monster Manual eventually when they get high enough level, because we simply did not have enough pages in the player's handbook to have all the beasts that Circle of the Moon Druid might want available. But even for them, we have a nice selection of beast options so that you can start playing with your main features in this book using the content that is all inside this very book.
Yeah, and because we've had 10 years of feedback on the 2014 books, we also knew that we were going to be making some adjustments to our stat block format to make our stat blocks even easier to run and more fun to run. But that work is not confined only to the Monster Manual. Going back to the idea that this is a 1,000+ page book broken up into 3 pieces, that stat block
Can we talk about this art for a sec? We've got a beholder wizard with a beard fighting a behir in a cloak. Can we just talk about that for a sec? Okay, just hold on that. If you needed a selling point for the artwork in these books alone, I feel like this just does it for you.
revision work impacts all 3 books.
And you'll see that not only in the creature appendix, but also in the Ranger Beastmaster subclass, where that subclass has been completely redesigned, largely inspired by work we did in Tasha's
Saber-toothed tiger.
Cauldron of Everything, but even going beyond what we did in Tasha's, the stat blocks for that Ranger's friends have been redesigned. All of the stat blocks that appear in the new summoning spells that are in the book have been redesigned, all with
The Phantom Steed there.
this view toward making
This one kind of almost looks like a D20. Do you guys see that? Kind of the body of the beholder almost looks like a D20. Is that just me?
our stat blocks easier to use, and also really getting under the hood of every stat block and making sure that the creature is delivering the goods when it comes to the damage it deals, its resilience, and also its fun.
You mentioned summoning spells, and again, like what I love about the new player's handbook is everything you need is in the new player's handbook. Like if you want to wild shape, if you want to summon a familiar, but the summoning spells have various options of the type of that creature that you want to use. So
More Dragonborn art again. Maybe Warlock here, right?
if it's an
Maybe
aberration, if it's
wizard?
undead, if it's a fiend, you're not just having to select this one type of stat block creature, you have a variety of options. So if you love summoning and you like to be tactical, it's just layers of options with one singular spell, and you have all the stats you need to just run it. You don't need to grab another book and go hunt something down. It's all in the player's handbook.
And that was something that people loved when we first introduced it in Tasha's Cauldron, and so we were excited to be able to take that approach to summoning and incorporate
Okay, can we talk about the variety of tieflings here and how much they're doing for... How about this, what looks to clearly be a tiefling druid with, like, antlers. She's got, or they've got, like, fawn spotting, like a deer. You can see down here on the arms and onto the upper arms into the face, and then down along the tail here. This is just, like, the variety, and, like, again, for those of us who've been playing D&D for a long time and feel comfortable, you're going to make up your own character and you're going to make them look like and be whatever you want them to be, right? You're not limited by what the player's handbook tells you is the typical design or layout of what a character normally looks like of your particular species or your particular class. You're going to do whatever you want, and you're going to come up with something cool and unique or whatever you want it to be. But for newer players, people who don't know, if they look at all of the tieflings in the player's handbook and they all are red with devil horns and that's what they all look like, they're going to assume that that's just what tieflings are. This is providing you with variety beyond what we've ever seen before. And again, some of the more specifically, I'm seeing like Tiefling and Dragonborn seem to get a lot of love in these books to showcase the variety in which they can look, which will definitely help inform people to really get creative when they're designing their characters.
It into the game's core. But even people who are familiar with those spells in Tasha's will have some fun surprises because all of those spells have been enhanced for the player's handbook. And so they, like everything else, are...
Yeah, people who's asking, I mean, it has a devil tail, right? You could see the tail. Let's go back.
People loved when we first introduced it in Tasha's Cauldron, and so we were excited to be able to take that approach to summoning and
see the tail? Long, kind of segmented tail with a point at the end, very much a tiefling tail, but again, also spotted like a fawn.
Incorporated into the game's core. But even people who are familiar with those spells in Tasha's will have some fun surprises because all of those spells have been enhanced for the player's handbook, and so they, like everything else, are glowed up. And we even have other parts of the book where options that maybe first appeared in Tasha's Cauldron now appear here and have been enhanced. Great example, the Soul Knife in the Rogue, the Psy Warrior in the Fighter, Aberrant Sorcery.
No, we were right about Aberrant Sorcery over there on the left. Look at that art of that Soul Knife Rogue on the left there. That's just some beauty right there. But yeah, you're also hearing that they're pulling in more stuff from Tasha's Cauldron, right? They mentioned specifically, again, psionic options appearing here, as these three are very much psionic based classes. Not true psionics in the terms of using like psi points and things, but psionic as in mind magic based.
In the Sorcerer. I bring up
all my psionic boys.
Yes, all a part of our desire to bring more psionics into the core game.
Yeah.
This was actually something that we talked about doing over a decade ago in the 2014 Player's Handbook, and we frankly just didn't have time to do it over a decade ago. And so we thought, now we have the time. And I like to think of it as the Great Old One Warlock now having their friends show up, so you can now have your full psionic crew. Whereas before in 2014, the Great Old One Warlock was wondering where all their psionic buddies were, and they've now all shown up for the party.
The Gray Old One is nasty now. Gray Old One is new and super nasty. It gets in your head literally to have some nice advantages in combat.
Yes.
Just maybe Hunger of Hadar, maybe? Arms of Hadar?
There are significant, lovely changes to some of the
Maybe Evard's Black Tentacles?
subclasses that just amp them up to more what you wanted to do, more what the kind of core concept was. Again, the Feywild patron for the Warlock, you are just teleporting everywhere, you are just bouncing, and with every time you do use Misty Step, there's a new added on effect, and it just feels like you've made a pact with a Fey creature. Like, it makes narrative sense. And it gets me excited for like the tactical things I can do with all these subclasses, because I feel like there might have been gaps before in the 2014 versions, and those have been filled in for that wish fulfillment that we all have.
The Archfey patron Warlock is a great example of a subclass that didn't just get tweaked. It's basically a new subclass.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this book has 3 brand new subclasses that have never appeared in a D&D book before. We have the Circle of the Sea in the Druid. We have
There you go. Circle of the Sea Druid.
the College of Dance in the Bard, and the Path of the World Tree in the Barbarian. But again, just as the Archfey patron Warlock has been so redesigned that it's essentially a new subclass, there are other subclasses like that as well. The Warrior of the Elements in the Monk
This is, again, your previously 4 elements monk.
has been so heavily reimagined, it's essentially a brand new subclass. The Beastmaster in the Ranger, essentially a brand new subclass. And when we do videos on individual classes, we can dig deeper in other subclasses like them that are essentially brand new. And then we have other subclasses that are going to feel very familiar to people while at the same time having brand new options inside them.
And again, remember that like Weapon Mastery has left no class that uses Weapon Mastery untouched. Like, that has changed the game.
Yes.
If you're a Paladin, if you're a Ranger, a Barbarian, a Rogue, a Fighter, the game is different now.
Absolutely. Every single class that is weapon focused, your play experience is going to be different now and more fun and more tactically interesting because of Weapon Mastery. Weapon Mastery is so juicy that through feats, we've also made it so that even if you're a member of a class who doesn't get it, you can take a feat to dip your toe into the Weapon Mastery pool. Just as we've always had a feat that allows non-spellcasters, the Magic Initiate feat, to get a little bit of that spellcasting flavor.
I feel like the feats have also focused more on that wish fulfillment of there's like the Skulker feat, and that has changed, where you really feel like, okay, now I can like attack in combat, not necessarily reveal myself. There's new features that make you feel like this feat, how I feel it should play, is playing that way now.
And there are way more feats.
There are a lot of feats.
But this book has 75 feats in it.
Yeah.
And it includes not only a suite of feats that
That is arguably, I think, double what's in the 2014 PHB. I don't know what the total number of feats are if you were to combine like Tasha's Cauldron and Xanathar's Guide and all those into one, what the total number of feats are, but I'm guessing it's probably comes pretty close to 75.
are for first level characters that they get through their backgrounds. But we also
Art. Look at the art.
now have epic boon feats that unlock for you when you reach level 19. And then between those epic feats and your what are called origin feats that you get at first level, you have many of the feats that were available to you before in the 2014 Player's Handbook, along with a number of new feats, some of which have migrated into the Player's Handbook from Tasha's Cauldron, and then have been enhanced in a variety of ways. We also have some things in the game that previously existed inside class features. So a great example of this are the fighting styles.
Right.
That shared tech has now migrated out of the classes into the feat system. And in addition to that, now in that category, for example, in the fighting style category, there are also now more options than there were in 2014.
All of this was done in consultation with the community through Unearthed Arcana articles. Those articles helped inform us about how far could we go with the design. You know, how far was too far, how far was just right. And a lot of time and energy was spent by Jeremy and others poring over the information that the community was giving us, the feedback that they were giving us on the subclasses, on the feats. I think that there were times when we even, I think, pushed even farther than the fans really wanted to go, but they helped rein us in a little bit. And what came out the other end, I think, is going to just surprise and delight people. And for people who have been invested in UA and paying very close attention to what's going on, they're still going to be surprised because some of the feedback they gave us led us down interesting, fun paths. And but they're also going to see, oh, these guys actually, you know, they took the feedback that I gave them and they made it better. And this is going to so amp up my game.
And those shifts that we made based on the invaluable feedback that the community provided are really going to result in that surprise you're talking about, Chris. Like, for example, in the Unearthed Arcana process, we tried several different approaches to inspiration and how that rule works. Well, the version that's in the Player's Handbook never appeared in any of the Unearthed Arcana articles, but it was inspired by feedback that we received, because and it is now called heroic inspiration. Right. Rather than dealing with advantage, which is what inspiration did in 2014, we realized this rule needs to play better with the rest of the game, and the game is already chock full of ways to get advantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the final version of it is now a reroll, so not advantage, but is a reroll that
New art. Also, are you listening to that? Heroic inspiration, the stuff that you would give out to people, you know, as the DM, it is no longer advantage on a roll. It is a re-roll, meaning it will counter or it will subvert advantage, disadvantage.
the player can apply to any roll, not just d20 rolls. Because what we realized is we also wanted you to be happy you have this, even when, let's say, you're rolling the amount of hit points you restore to somebody with a healing spell, or you're rolling damage, or the DM has you randomly roll a die for some mysterious reason, like DMs sometimes do. We want players to have this little ace in their pocket of, all right, I always know if I have heroic inspiration, if I roll really bad, no matter what the die roll is, I can use it and re-roll and hope I get something better.
And we're
Any roll, mind you. So that's pretty huge. Now, I don't believe, we'd have to check the Unearthed Arcana, but I don't believe Divine Intervention, because I know that's exactly where my mind went to, Zeal, is Divine Intervention, where it says, like, you know, you have to roll a percentile and roll it under your your class level. I don't believe I think they changed in the Unearthed Arcana we saw the Cleric. I think they got away from Divine Intervention being that loosey-goosey. I think they changed it to just basically being like it can replicate a spell. And then I'm pretty sure like the high level one was basically you just get Wish or something like that. But yeah, from what it's saying, you could re-roll any roll. So Teleport would be an example, right? If it's percentile again, any roll could be re-rolled with Heroic Inspiration, right? That could be your damage roll. That could be, you know, your hit point roll if you guys roll for HP. right? Like when you level up, that could be that roll. So remember some of the adventures have feats as well. Yeah, that's true. Is it one dice or all dice in a roll? It sounds like a die roll, like die roll. So I'm assuming it's all of the hit points, like all of the dice. That's how I would word it at my table. We'll have to see what the final wording is. But like if I rolled a fireball and I rolled like 8 ones, I feel like if I'm going to use heroic inspiration, I should get to reroll all of my d6s. That's how I would treat it. Reroll initiative. Yes, no, I'm saying an excellent point. Reposition yourself in combat could be huge with that. I like that a lot. Brian Reynolds, we don't know at this point. They're just giving us this information. We don't know if this is like you have to use the new roll, or you could maybe choose to use both. Because again, for that point with initiative, right? If you're re-rolling something like initiative, and you roll a 1, it might have been better to use what you had previously. So we'll have to see. Again, the nature of it being inspiration makes me think you can pick, but. You're right. The latest Clark has a totally different divine intervention system. Yeah, I think that's probably what they're going to perpetuate forward. It's just cleaner in my mind, but I like the opportunity now for inspiration to let you reroll anything. Some of us, you've been out there, you've rolled a smite or a sneak attack, and you've just rolled like trash. Changing that up could be huge. So.
Showing you as much art as we can, and layout and page design, and even then it's not the same as holding it, especially when it comes to like the alt covers as well. Yeah. There is a texture, there is a way the light hits the gold that you can't really describe.
Yeah, the alt covers were really fun as well. We went sort of intentionally the opposite direction in the alt covers. We wanted to do something that was quiet and reserved and really paid homage to these being books, right? To TRPG books, right? This is a place of people where they're gonna, you're gonna buy these at your friendly local game store. You're going in person to pick up a physical object. That sort of classic fairy tale style of a book kind of came to mind as an idea of this feels like it both pays homage, but also is like a nice update and similar but different than what we've done before. So, and also a very big contrast to the traditionals.
So for the Player's Handbook, we've got another iteration of the Gold Dragon.
We have a Gold Dragon on the cover, Having Some Tea with Some Friends by Wiley Beckert is the artist there. And they just really nailed it, the kind of vibe that we were going for of, we want something cozy, we want something calm, we want something that calls back to sort of classic storytale illustrations. We want a relatively tight color palette here. But I guess the thing I'll say about the alt covers is you have to see them in person because the gold foil treatment that's on them, the sort of soft touch to the cover, them being on a foil cover as well. So when you move them around, the way that the light hits them, the gold framing has beautiful shine to it, but the actual cover itself has almost like a lenticular style of foil. So when you see them, they're really beautiful and they're really different. And what I hope for these covers is, these, and also intentional in the style of these, is that I hope that people hang on to these for a long time, and I hope they get a lot of wear and tear. And I hope that 10 years from now, these sit on a bookshelf next to other well-loved and well-used books and feel right at home.
I'm also excited for people when they get the book in their hands to page through it from beginning to end. We're hoping people will even read the introduction. We made it super short.
It is short. Yeah.
So they'll read it. But the introduction does things like talk about the main components you need to play, which the Player's Handbook in the past has not done. It also, for anyone coming from the 2014 Player's Handbook, has a really critical sidebar that talks about what's new in the book. Also clarifies that this book, if is basically when you activate it in your game, this book does replace the 2014 Player's Handbook, and I think it's important for people to understand that. So we don't have people sort of trying to mix and match pieces of the two Player's Handbooks, but you can absolutely use this Player's Handbook with the adventures you already have for 5th edition.
Ha ha! There it is. Let's go back and listen to that again. Yes, they did say, for people chiming out, the SRD 5.2 will be updated post the release of the Monster Manual in February of next year, presumably including these rules as well. But this, guys, I really want you to focus in on this bit. A lot of us who were talking about, we'd heard a lot of back and forth about the backwards compatibility. It sounds like they're addressing that in full in this statement right now, so please, everybody listen up. This is going to be big.
Introduction does things like talk about the main components you need to play, which the Player's Handbook in the past has not done. It also, for anyone coming from the 2014 Player's Handbook, has a really critical sidebar that talks about what's new in the book. Also clarifies that this book, if is basically when you activate it in your game, this book does replace the 2014 Player's Handbook, and I think it's important for people to understand that. So we don't have people sort of trying to mix and match pieces of the two Player's Handbooks, but you can absolutely use this Player's Handbook with the adventures you already have for 5th edition.
But you can play a character from this new Player's Handbook right next to a character using the 2014 Player's Handbook as well. That's still true.
Absolutely. We have designed the new Player's Handbook so that characters built with it can be played with characters built with the 2014 Player's Handbook.
Yeah.
Now, that is true for the character options themselves. When it comes to the sort of baseline rules, the combat rules, the definitions of the conditions and whatnot,
Yeah.
if you are playing a 2014 character with 2024 characters, we have designed things so that the 2024 rules are what should be used in that situation.
Yeah.
Because those rules can handle a 2014 character being present, but the 2014 version of the rules will grind in a few places
Yeah.
with a 2024 character. Sometimes because of terms used in the 2024 character
Right.
that only have definitions now in the 2024 rules, whereas you, again, can take a 2014 character and play them in a 2024 game.
And that is to their advantage, like being able to drink a potion with a bonus action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're going to want
Yeah.
even your 2014 character to be swimming in a 2024 pool because of the many improvements to the core rules.
Absolutely.
But then you'll go from that introduction into the first chapter, which teaches all the main rules of the game. Also sort of gets you used to referring to the rules glossary, because the book often, rather than going super deep on a particular rules topic, will give you the basics and then send you to the rules glossary for the nitty-gritty. Other times you'll get all of it in one place, depending on, is there a version of the rule that you can learn that's just part of it versus do you need to know all of it at once?
Yeah.
And that first chapter has longer examples of play than we've ever done in a player's handbook
And those
before.
are fantastic. It's like you even have like art of the players around the table, and this happens, and this is
We
this is
saw
what you
this,
rolled,
right?
and this is how that affected the game.
Along with commentary that explains what it is that you're reading about in that example of play. When you get to the character creation chapter, you, in addition to seeing the fun line art, are going to be brought step by step through the character creation process in a way that we've never done before, with also a lot of handy sort of get started quick bits in the chapter. Here's an example. When it comes time for you to assign your ability scores, if you've ever struggled, whether you're a brand new D&D player or maybe you're a veteran player but you're playing a class you haven't played before and you've struggled with, well, how should I assign my ability scores, particularly if you're using the standard array or point buy? Well, we now provide suggested ability score arrays for every class in the book so that you can get started playing quickly. If you really love optimizing your character and when you choose your background, you're not just interested in its story implications, but you're really interested in how it's going to affect your ability scores. Well, knowing that there are players where that kind of optimization is important to them, the character creation chapter has a table that tells you, here are the backgrounds to choose if you are looking for backgrounds that bump these certain ability scores.
That's fantastic.
I love that. Can we talk about that for a second? Now, obviously, we know that D&D is a role-playing game. We know that role-playing has become a major forefront. It's obviously been important to the game, right? But I'd say, at least my experience with older editions, it was very crunchy, very min-maxy. That's kind of how I got my start in the game, was living in a very min-maxy world. Playing 3.5, that kind of makes sense. But I'd say 5e kind of has toned some of the crunchiness back. Not that there aren't people out there doing their best to break the game, and that's fine. But it's a bigger focus on role-playing. I think some of that's because of the way the game is designed. It's how some of the rules are. And then obviously the influx of things like actual plays and stuff like that. But I like that even though that's a big focus and a lot of more people nowadays are more focused on also being sure they have like a good character story, accents and descriptions and art and all this other stuff for their characters, that they're like, hey, you know what? We see you min-maxy types. We see you guys out there that just want to have the best stats for your game, for your character, so you can be the best mechanically at what you do. We're going to put in options that make it easier to tell you, hey, you want to be the best, this is how you do it. And I just think that that's something they easily could have left by the wayside, but they decided like, hey, let's make sure we give those folks their time in the sun as well, which I like that.
And we provide that kind of assistance throughout the chapter. It goes even further than making a character at first level. It also provides rules for making a character at higher levels. We really want people to embrace this idea we've talked about throughout 5th edition, that if you're playing with a group of experienced players and you want your brand new party to hit the ground running as a group of adventurers, we encourage you to start at 3rd level, not 1st. 3rd level is when every class now gets their subclass and all of their main class abilities. And to support starting at 3rd level, we have now the rules for starting at that level in the Player's Handbook, as well as at any other level. So if you want to start a character at 18th level because your DM wants you to dive right into epic play, the rules for that are in the Player's Handbook too. And then you go from there into classes, character origins, feats, equipment, and spells.
And also the species have been, there's a lot of new there as well. Like the Goliath, all I can say is the Dragonborn feel very Dragonborn now. The Goliath feels exceptionally Goliath now.
Just the fact that there are species here who were in the 2014.
Yeah, the Goliath wasn't in there.
The Goliath wasn't there, the Aasimar wasn't there, and the Orc wasn't there. So all three of those species now join other options that were present in 2014, and all of them have been enhanced in various ways. The community got to see.
Okay, so first of all, I present to you once again a Dragonborn variety. But if you missed that, there was a couple of things to consider. They said there's going to be 10 species in the game. They mentioned that Aasimar, Goliath, and Orc are in the book, and they were not in the 2014, and then the other remainders were. So I think that basically means you're going to nix half Orc and half Elf, and then add in Goliath, Aasimar, and Orc to get you to 10 with the other ones that were already there. And yeah, it sounds like they're actually going to have legitimate, baked into the player's handbook, no less, not like hidden away in a random chapter in the Dungeon Master's Guide, rules for how to start play at higher levels, which is pretty cool. Warforged, in fact, are not in the book from the sounds of it. So I'm guessing they're going to probably keep that for a secondary thing, or maybe an Eberron specific book. Let's see. Let's keep going.
An earlier draft of those enhancements in the Unearthed Arcana process, but since our game development continues beyond then, you're going to see even more. Great example of this, the Orc's Adrenaline Rush. The last time people saw it recharged only on a long rest, but in the final version actually recharges on a short rest or a long rest. The Aasimar, for people who have not yet seen the new version,
Zeal, I think the fact that subclasses are at 3rd level is 100% in fact designed to combat multi-class quick level dips to get a bunch of abilities, because the fact that people could multi-class into a level of cleric or a level of warlock or a level of sorcerer to get themselves a whole bunch of features at level 1, I wouldn't be surprised if obviously they said the intention is to also not provide so much choice for a brand new player at level 1, which I understand that, right? Let's not have the brand new player have to make a whole bunch of character defining choices at level 1. I also wouldn't be surprised if that was to help combat 1 level dips into other classes.
rather than choosing a celestial revelation that is sort of fixed for the rest of your characters, there are fun new options everywhere in the book, species included.
Not only is the new player's handbook available for pre-order right now on D&D Beyond, you can find that link in the video description, but also the new core rulebooks, both digital and physical, are available for pre-order as a bundle that includes the new Dungeon Master's Guide, the new Monster Manual, and the new player's handbook. Can you tell me a little bit more about what's new in the Dungeon Master's Guide?
First and foremost, the Dungeon Master's Guide is bigger. Like all of the revised 5th edition books, we have added pages to the book, things that were not.
We've heard a lot about the PHB. I'm going to say we focus up at this point. We haven't heard too much about the Dungeon Master Guide and Monster Manual at this point.
In the 2014 book that are in this book include 5 short sample adventures.
Great.
A complete campaign setting.
Amazing. Just great,
a
Hawk. We know
lore
that.
glossary. And
oh man. Check out that Tiamat art and this poor little adventurer over here with their shiny rainbow stick. Boy, oh boy. I do not envy you. But this is also new art for all of them. Look at the horn on the blue dragon and this kind of the look here of the white dragon. There's the red, the black, the green in the back here. Very cool.
another totally new feature of this book is the Bastions chapter. That's all new content that we wanted to get into this book, and that's why the book is one of the reasons why the book is bigger.
Why is it so chunky?
It's a chunky book. Yes, exactly. So one of the chapters of the book is called Creating Adventures, and it's all about helping the DM create adventures. There are tips and tricks that we can give you to help you do that. But all the advice aside, nothing compares to being able to see the advice being implemented. So after giving you a bunch of advice on how you can create your own adventure content for your home groups, we present 5 short adventures in a format that we think DMs will want to emulate and use for their own prep, accompanied by the maps that are in
This art's fantastic.
one of the appendices of the book.
Look at that little baby Otyug!
These adventures are meant to show you how...
Oh, those are the characters from the fallbacks. The new novel, I think.
you can create your own adventure content in
Oh, look at the art of the conjuration. There's an Aarakocra over here. You see that?
a way that will be very easy for you to run at the table.
Perfect.
the campaign setting. Yes, when you are ready to build a campaign, this chapter does, I think, a very good job, a much better job of showing you what a campaign looks like by giving you an example of one, which no previous Dungeon Master's Guide has ever tried to do. And we thought the best campaign setting for this book is the Greyhawk setting. What we do is
There it is.
we give you a poster map in the book that has the world of Greyhawk wilderness on one side and the city of Greyhawk on the other, because we use the city of Greyhawk as a sample of what a campaign hub can be. A campaign hub is sort of where the campaign starts. It's kind of its center, its core. And then we go out beyond that. We go into the regions around the city and we describe what are some of the nearby areas of interest. Because in a campaign, as soon as you strike it from the hub, you need places to go, dungeons in the hills, or threats in the forest, that kind of thing. We flesh that out, and then we go even broader and show you the rest of the land known as Eastern Auric, or the Flaneus, this vast region around the city of Greyhawk. We flesh out all of those domains.
Yeah, there was a 5e novel called The Fallbacks, came out a little while ago. We were going to do a book club. I just never got around to actually getting around to scheduling that. Also, they just released a Spelljammer audiobook as well.
To the extent that we believe DMs need to get sort of a lay of the land, but at the same time saying, hey, DM, now that we've given you this, make it your own.
Yeah.
Put your dungeon here if you want to. Add a town here if you want to. That kind of thing. It's very much built on the idea of we're giving you a sandbox.
Yeah.
We're throwing some toys in, and we're saying, go play.
Yeah. Greyhawk is yours now.
It is, yes. That's a great way to say it. Greyhawk is yours. The next element I want to talk about is the lore.
Dracolich. Very Gimli-looking dwarf over here in the front. They're not pulling away from Faerun. They're doing their best to have the books. Remember, they're trying to sell us on the fact that the setting of Dungeons and Dragons has always been the multiverse. I don't necessarily agree with that. They're really trying to push that, though. So they're doing their best to showcase art from all different campaign settings in all of the different books. We saw some Ravenloft art in the Player's Handbook. The thought process here, though, again, just they've mentioned it before in other videos and things, is it's the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons. It only makes sense in their mind to have the starter campaign that they're going to use to teach a brand new Dungeon Master how to run a campaign is the campaign that started it all, Greyhawk. Also, I just want to take a moment to talk about how I really like the fact that they're actually providing Dungeon Master tools, like legitimate tools, for adventure design and campaign design, because I feel like one of the things that the Dungeon Master Guide lacks is anything for the Dungeon Master outside of magic items, for real. When you really look at the 5e version of it, it's mostly a magic item book and then garbage, in my opinion, for a lot of the other stuff. There's some cool things to pick, right? Some of the custom systems, maybe the chase rules, which also could be updated. But mostly it had a lot of just throwaway stuff at the front. The front, maybe 3 or 4 chapters, kind of just take or leave. It sounds like they're really doing a good job to make this a tool to teach Dungeon Masters. A guide, even, if you will, for Dungeon Masters. So that's cool to see.
Lore glossary. The lore glossary is an alphabetical listing of some of the most famous places, figures, and materials that are so iconic to D&D that we want them to be shared knowledge among all D&D players of all ages. What is mithril in D&D? What is adamantine in D&D? That kind of thing. The lore glossary captures a lot of that lore that many of us old-timers have embedded in our heads, but a lot of D&D players don't.
Yeah.
And so this is just an easy, quick reference guide for people who are
There's Venger, right? Looking at it, it looks like Tiamat, maybe,
looking
and an
for
orb.
information about this mysterious thing they just stumbled upon. So the fourth wholly new thing in the Dungeon Master's Guide that I haven't talked about yet is the Bastions chapter.
I'm very, very excited for this.
So Bastions is, while the word is new to our lexicon in D&D, it's built on a very old concept, because even going all the way back to the earliest editions of D&D, there were rules for building strongholds.
Yeah.
Often you didn't get access to them, though, until you were much higher level. We have designed the Bastion system in the Dungeon Master's Guide so that characters can start building their bastions at level 5.
Wow.
These continue to grow over the life of your adventuring career, but the magnificent thing about them is you basically run them as kind of like a separate little activity. It does not stop you from being an adventurer.
Yeah.
Your adventurer can go around saving the multiverse, run off to the Nine Hells or run off to the Feywild, do what you have to do. Once your bastion is up and running, it is kind of a self-sustaining unit. And it's the players who run the bastions. So every player is in charge of their own bastion and their own bastion's maintenance. And there are these this mechanism called the bastion turn, which
We've seen some of
activates
this
and
in
basically
Unearthed
says, okay,
Arcana.
your bastion, now take a bastion turn. You don't even have to be home for your bastion, for something to be happening in your bastion. But also, a bastion is like a mini game,
Yeah.
a mini campaign that the player is controlling. The players are essentially DMing their own microcosms.
No, I'm saying, you say I predict a Bastion mobile game. Honestly, what'll probably knock it out of the park if you're a developer out there would be a Bastion app. Depends on if Bastions are released into the SRD 5.2. I'm hoping they will. If they are, a Bastion tracking app would probably be huge.
Within the larger campaign, giving identities to their hirelings in the bastions, triggering events that happen in the bastions, and seeing the results and consequences of those events. That's a very DM.
This is giving me Ravenloft vibes. Zeal, to your point, who will actually use Bastions in their game? I'll try it. I mean, I'll try anything once, right? You give me a shot at it, I'll run it, I'll see if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and then I'll make a video about how it didn't work. But if it does and people love it, that's the other thing, right? Like, I might think Bastions are a stupid idea, but I might find out that my players love Bastions, and I'm not going to deny them that fun that they enjoy just because I don't particularly like the system. So I'm definitely willing to give it a shot. And like I said, I'll update you guys once I've done it in one of my games. We'll see how it goes.
Side of things. And so I love the idea that the bastions are in the Dungeon Master's Guide because, in effect, it's allowing the players to get a taste of what DMing is like.
Yeah. It's very sneaky.
Yes, and it's a wonderful out-of-game activity.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great minigame.
Yeah, when you're if the session has to be canceled or whatever, and you can't play tonight or whatever, that's okay. Your DM can just say, everybody take a bastion turn.
Yeah, send a message.
And then off the players go, and they just let the DMs know what their bastions did on that particular turn. It's a fabulous sort of game within a game.
And then we have just a massive treasury. Treasure section.
Yes. So as in 2014, the biggest chapter in the Dungeon Master's Guide is the treasure chapter.
Loot.
Of course.
Yes. Every magic item is getting. You've got a little hairy eyeball. We took a look at it. We made some refinements to it. We stuffed even more magic items into the chapter to address certain holes or gaps that we'd identified. For instance, in the 2014 DMG, there weren't a lot of common magic items, so we imported a few.
I really hope there's more than just swords, because there's 15 different magic swords in the 2014 Player's Handbook. Not a lot for people outside of sword users.
We also saw opportunity to squeeze in some, shall we say, nostalgic delights. In celebration of 50th anniversary, including things like magic items used by the kids in the D&D cartoon.
Perfect. Yeah.
We've also taken another crack at the crafting magic items rules. How do you, a player, how do you, a character, craft an item of your own, with your DM's consent, of course.
And is the crafting system also in the Player's Handbook, or is it only the DMG?
That is a great question. So the answer is yes. There is crafting magic items in the Player's Handbook, but it's limited to some very simple potions and scrolls.
Okay.
So you can create a...
Crafting rules for potions and scrolls in the Player's Handbook. Crafting rules for magic items in the Dungeon Master Guide.
A low-level spell scroll, you can create a potion of healing or some other low-level potion. The rules in the Dungeon Master's Guide are broader and encompass more variety.
Perfect.
Then we have a whole chapter on the cosmology of D&D, which talks about the worlds of D&D and the planes of existence that are out there waiting to be explored. We tried to make them more beautiful this time around. We tried to give you even more useful information as a Dungeon Master about some of these places, and while still making it clear that, hey, you're the DM.
Oh, that beholder is terrifying. Love that art.
What you show of the multiverse is entirely up to you.
Perfect.
We have talked a lot about the tracking sheets.
Yeah, tell me about the tracking sheets.
So one of the fun new features that's sprinkled through the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide, like candy, are these delightfully charming tracking sheets that not only do we put in the books as kind of like a show and tell to show you what we mean, but also we're going to make them downloadable off of our website so that you can just print them out and put them in whatever you use for your campaign journal. And these sheets are designed to help you keep track of important information in your game or in your campaign. There is for instance, if you want to create a new NPC, there is a sheet that we give you that you can use and write on to capture important information about that NPC, and it's presented in a very clean, elegant way. There's a sheet that you can use to build settlements like towns and villages. There's a sheet players can use to keep track of important information about their bastions. There is a sheet you can use as a DM to keep track of the magic items that you've dispensed to the party in the course of the campaign. To keep track of important character information so that you have some information about the characters in the party readily accessible to you as a DM behind your screen. And then I think most importantly, or the sheet that I find most useful, is the session planner sheet, where you know you've got a game session next week. You can write down the key beats of what you think is going to happen, key characters, make notes and other things. These sheets are beautiful. I think they're compelling. I think a lot of DMs will want to use them or want to create versions of them. And they have charming little illustrations of monsters on them, which I think are absolutely delightful. Now, I haven't talked about the first 3 chapters of the book, Todd.
That's my fault. I am a terrible interviewer. Well, tell me about the first few chapters of the book.
Chapters 1, 2, and 3 are super important.
Okay.
And we put them at the front of the book because they're super important.
That's a good structure.
Chapter 1 is called The Basics.
Perfect.
Great.
It is a short chapter, primarily aimed at DM curious folks who haven't DM'd or haven't DM'd much and are curious to really kind of dive in and sink their teeth into the DM role. And then when we quickly segue out of there into chapter 2, which is called Running the Game. And it is literally that. It includes a sample walkthrough of play. There are similar things in the player's handbook, but this one is more aimed at the dungeon master. When we get to chapter 3 is a weirdo. There's a bunch of topics that have to be covered that are very situational. Traps, how poisons work, siege engines,
Okay, great.
information about NPC building, a bunch of these miscellaneous topics that the 2014 DMG covered, but they were sort of scattered
Right.
everywhere. throughout
These are the
book.
building blocks.
Yes, that's a good way to look at it. Building blocks. We call chapter 3 the DM toolbox because it's just this cyclopedia of miscellaneous parts, toys that can come up in play, and we organized it alphabetically by topic. So it is this alphabetically topical listing of different things. You need more information about curses and how curses work. There's a section on curses. You need more information about hazards like green slime, yellow mold, brown mold, fireball fungus.
No.
Yes. That's all in the hazards section.
Everything feels like a new, fresh experience, and like you said, a better experience for existing players who have been playing D&D. But this also feels like the best time to learn D&D now.
It is taking the wonderful bits of the 2014 Dungeon
Fireball fungus has me curious.
Master's Guide and resorting them and blending them in a way with new stuff that does, in fact, turn it into a new book.
Now, we've talked a lot about the new player's handbook, and you and I have talked a lot about the new Dungeon Master's Guide, maybe more than we should have, but we also have the new monster manual. Tell me a little bit about that. How has this been revamped?
So this is the largest monster manual the game has ever had. Over 500 monsters in it. And that includes not only
Oh, that gelatinous cube art is fantastic.
many of the classic foes that people expect to face in D&D,
Oh,
but also
fluff.
many creatures that could serve as allies. We have rebuilt every monster that was in the 2014 monster manual, striving to make it as fun as it can be, make sure it's as
Ooh, that shambling mound, though.
scary as it should be for its challenge rating. But then we've also added a bunch of new monsters. There are over 75 new monsters in this book, and many of the new monsters fill in families of monsters that already existed. Great example. The game already, of course, had vampires in it, and multiple types. Well, there are even more types now.
You knew that would please you, Tom.
Yes. And the additional vampire types are there
Yeah, big
because
bang,
when we have looked
probably.
at each of the major families of monsters, we've wanted to make sure that there were opportunities for groups to encounter that family of monster
Without getting murdered right
well,
away?
maybe sooner than they could before.
Yeah.
But also in some cases, we also wanted there to be higher CR versions of some of these families of monsters.
Oh,
so
nice.
there's a new low CR vampire, which is a vampire that is still partly mortal in the process of becoming a full vampire. But then on the other end, we have a new vampire that is more powerful than the sort of apex vampire that we had in the 2014 Monster Manual. We've also fleshed out
Oh, that art, though. Dude. So good.
many of the families of NPCs that existed in 2014. We wanted to make sure that those NPC groups remained relevant for more of a campaign, particularly because we know that DMs used the heck out of those NPC stat blocks that were in 2014. And so in addition to expanding out some of those NPC groups, whether it's bandits or priests or mages, we've also created new groups. So there's now a group of performers, there's now a group of pirates, and so on, because we want to make this book the indispensable tool for DMs as they're preparing adventures and campaigns to go to this book for inspiration, to be inspired by the art, by the stat blocks, by the story text, as they're creating their adventures. But then also to have a whole bunch of stat blocks that are super easy to use at the table when initiative is rolled, and the DM can unleash a whole bunch of surprises.
Because there's been a little bit of extra added to them. The art is also stunning. I've seen some of the art that's been coming in, and that is stunning as well. And
Almost all the art in the book is new.
that's perfect.
Yes,
That's
it's
a lot of
beautiful.
art.
It's glorious.
Yes.
One of the key things that we paid attention to was making sure that if it's a pre-existing monster, its challenge rating stayed the same. And that was a necessity for us because we want to make sure that the monsters are all compatible with our previous 5th edition adventures. But we knew, based on extensive playtesting and 10 years of experience, that not all the monsters were
Is that another
hitting their
shambling
CR
mound?
exactly right. So that gave us room to make some fun
Twig
adjustments.
blight, maybe?
And so there will be many monsters, particularly at
Oh,
the
these
higher
are
CRs,
blights.
that are going to be far more terrifying
Needle blight.
than they were before. We also, in the Monster Manual, have created Apex versions of certain creature types that didn't have an Apex version before. Some of our creature types dragons and giants being prime examples, along with our fiends, have long had really high CR, iconic examples of those creature types. We also, of course, have the Tarrasque as the apex monstrosity, but we have some other creature types that were missing a monster at that high level of difficulty, and so we have filled those gaps in the new monster manual.
This marrow art is awesome.
So that now means we have in the
Or merfolk, maybe? I don't know.
construct category, we have a colossus that can just trample cities. In the ooze category, we have the blob of annihilation that can dissolve entire towns worth of people into it. I mean, a total horror. We now have an arch hag in the fey category that can strike.
I really want them to show us art of one of these, but I don't know if they will.
True terror into high-level groups, cackling while doing it. Even the elemental category, it's interesting. Elementals, that's one of the most classic monster categories, but it too was actually missing a monster at the sort of Tarrasque tier, and it now has one in the form of the elemental juggernaut.
Well, we're about at time, but we are going to have a series of these videos coming out every single day during the weekdays. We are going to be going over different features in the player's handbook. We're going to be going over every subclass, every class, rules glossary, spells. I hope everyone doesn't get sick of me because we're going to talk about this every single day. I'm very excited that all three of these books are out.
To that point, I hope you don't get sick of me because now I'm going to have to be doing videos every single day. Which, honestly, this is regimented content for me. This is going to make me make more content, so...
Up for pre-order, and that you can also pre-order the player's handbook separately. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for letting me interview you for so many years. And
all right, that's that one. That is Player's Handbook, Everything You Need to Know. I wish I had a marker system so I could put a marker in here. Let's go ahead. Do I have an option for that? Create a highlight video, add stream marker. Boom. Huh, look at me go. Let's go on. Now we do have a 13-minute video here called New Weapon Mastery. Now I can't imagine much has changed from what we saw in the Unearthed Arcana, as I feel like they refined that down quite a bit. But looks like why don't we no, you know what? Let's just keep rolling because I'm on a time limit here. Once the boys get home, it's going to be a little wild. So let's go ahead and check out New Weapon Mastery. We'll put this up again to 1.5 times speed. We'll put the subtitles on. I meant to do that before. And we'll just dive right in. Here we go.
we have Weapon Mastery, which has a significant impact on so many classes, subclasses, all these characters that has completely changed the game. Can you tell me more about this?
Weapon Mastery properties are brand new properties that we have assigned to all of the game's simple and martial weapons. And you must have a class feature that allows you to unlock Weapon Mastery to be able to use those properties. And so what this means is if a wizard, for instance, who does not have a Weapon Mastery feature, picks up a weapon, that weapon is going to function the way they expect it to from the 2014 rules. Although a number of weapons have had some tweaks made to them in addition to the Weapon Mastery properties. However, if you are a character, whether you are a fighter, a barbarian, a rogue, a paladin, a ranger, or someone who has otherwise unlocked the ability to use Weapon Mastery, suddenly when you use the dagger, because of your mastery with the weapon, you will be able to unlock its mastery property. And each weapon has a specific mastery property from a list of properties that has been assigned to it. And so with the dagger, that property is a property called Nick. It allows you to benefit from the extra attack that the light property in the dagger gives you without having to spend your bonus action on it. It's simple, but powerful. Because what that suddenly means is the person who has decided to focus their mastery option on daggers, they've just freed up their bonus action to do something else with it. They no longer have to use their bonus action when they are using the light.
I've been using this it's been very infrequent, but the Tuesday night game that I sometimes play, where I've been playing a playtest version of the Rogue, I've been using that, and it's been working pretty well.
Property to get that extra attack each
But they
round.
could.
But they could.
So they could throw 3 daggers.
They could. But this is just a great example of how Weapon Mastery powerfully transforms how certain characters use their weapons. There are other weapons that have a property called Graze. And if your character unlocks the Graze property in a weapon, that means that you are so good at using that weapon that you will always manage to at least graze your target, even if you missed. And again, transformative. Now, no character in the player's handbook has access to every mastery property simultaneously. Just as a spellcaster has to choose the cantrips that they know from a larger list of available cantrips for their class, the characters who have the weapon mastery property choose a certain number of those properties that they have unlocked. And how you make that choice is you choose the weapon. So for instance, if you're playing a class that lets you unlock 2 mastery properties, you would choose 2 weapons. You might pick dagger and short sword. And that means you get to use the mastery properties of those 2 weapons. Some classes are able to have more mastery properties unlocked at one time than others. The leader of the pack in that regard is the fighter. The fighter is the master of weapon mastery. The fighter, over the course of their career, they are able to have more and more mastery properties unlocked at a time. And then even at a higher level, they get to a point where they are able to also...
If we really wanted to, we could probably decipher this. Right, that's Remarkable Athlete, this is Battle Master, this is clearly Eldritch Knight.
They get to a point where they are able to also swap in certain mastery properties over other mastery properties.
Yeah.
But we'll talk more about that when we dig into the fighter.
Yeah, that's amazing though.
There are other properties that push people back. There's Topple, where you can knock someone down with the Battle Axe, for instance, that has the Topple mastery property. You can choose your weapons to combo with each other in different ways. A great example of this is the short sword has the Vex property, and Vex, when you hit somebody with a weapon that has the Vex property and you've unlocked that property, it means your next attack roll against them has advantage. Well, we carefully constructed the mastery property selections to benefit different sort of class fantasies. So in this case, this is all about empowering the rogue to be able to set themselves up with advantage for their next attack so that then that attack has
Sneak attack.
so it can sneak attack. And there are things like that throughout. Ranged weapons, because again, mastery properties aren't just on melee weapons. For example, the longbow has the slow property. And the narrative here is, imagine you're hitting someone in like a leg or somewhere else that is going to slow them down. When you think about the long range of the longbow, this allows you to keep that creature way over there because you are making it harder and harder for them to reach you. And again, the tactical possibilities start multiplying, particularly if you have weapon mastery and you're also playing a class that eventually gets extra attack, because you can start using one weapon for one of those attacks and another weapon for the other one and exploit their different mastery properties to create some fascinating tactical combinations yourself.
So the Great Club has push, which makes perfect sense. You can knock someone back 10 feet. But a heavy crossbow, it's perfect because if you want to knock someone off a cliff, if you want to shoot someone right off the wall of a castle, that has a new element of strategy now.
And right there too, you see, when you compare the mastery properties on the different weapons, adding them allowed us to bring out some of the narrative differences among these weapons in a way that we never could before. So if you compare the heavy crossbow to the longbow, one of them is slowing, the other one is pushing. That's actually an example of us being able to finally show how being hit in the real world by those two weapons feels different, because a crossbow hits with a force because of the mechanism. The longbow does not necessarily. I mean, they're both, you don't want to be hit by either of them. But it was a lot of fun for us to look at how can we actually bring these weapons to life in a way we never could before, now that we have weapon mastery. Everyone has the option of taking a feat that unlocks some weapon mastery. So we wanted to make sure that no matter what class that you're playing or subclass, you have the ability to dip your toe into this pool through the feat system.
And there's also sap, which gives that target disadvantages.
Sap is perfect against a foe that's actually really scary, and you want to impose disadvantage on their attack rolls. And so there are a number of weapons that have sap, and like the mace, the spear, and it again really good against the scarier
fantastic
foes.
Art, man. I really
but also
can't
another
say
example
good
of
things
us
about it.
looking at ways to enhance not only the narrative of different weapons, but also key into certain class fantasies better. So the mace, often associated with the cleric, and clerics have traditionally been all about protecting their friends. And so we were particularly eager to then put sap on the mace, because sap is all about diminishing how scary someone else is to your group. Whereas other weapons have mastery properties that are all about knocking people down or setting up your next attack.
How many times can you use weapon mastery? Is this every attack you can use that weapon mastery?
Yes. So if you have the weapon mastery unlocked on a weapon that you're using, it's designed so that you can theoretically be benefiting from the mastery property every time that you hit with the weapon, or in some cases, like with the grace property, when you miss with the weapon. And it is because of that design that we kept the mechanical weight of these mastery properties very light. We wanted them to be very impactful, but not a huge slowdown in play. And
not tremendously complex by themselves.
Exactly. So they are very weighty in terms of what they do, but they are not highly complex because, particularly in the hands of a character who starts getting many attacks, like think about a high-level fighter who can just attack, we wanted to make sure that because these are getting applied potentially over and over again, that they weren't going to bog the game down. And so that was a huge focus of our internal playtesting, is making sure that these each meet the goal of being really spicy and fun and create tactical interest while at the same time not bogging down play.
We talked about this before, but now when you see one of these weapons in play, you have a different context. It is not just a dice roll now when you see a great axe. When you see a crossbow, it's not just getting hit by a bolt.
That's beautiful.
You may
art
get pushed
too.
back 10 feet and fly right off a cliff. So there's a new context emotionally and narratively for what these weapons are now. They mean something extra.
Well, especially for the DM, because it is primarily going to be monsters that are facing this.
Absolutely.
But it also means that players can be much more interactive with each other in setting combos up, because now if you know, all right, that crossbow isn't just going to do damage, but it might also displace the target, that creates a tactical situation for the group to have fun thinking about that wasn't there before.
It's very
This art is fantastic. Look at this with the maul, although it looks like you're going to be swinging with the backside of the maul, I guess, against, what are these? I don't know. I was going to say Umber Hulks, but they're too small. Yeah, I gotta say, I think the weapon mastery is such a beautiful, elegant system in that, like, it adds so much to the martials in terms of tactical combat. So you're looking at somebody who's never really played a fighter ever, because in my mind, a fighter wouldn't have enough things for me to do. Like, I mean, it's no secret that Paladin's my favorite class. Granted, that's the 2014 Paladin. I don't know how I'm going to feel about this new version. But I liked the variability that I had from all the different things I could do. I could swing and hit hard, but I also had a lot of cool versatility in terms of spellcasting. So, like, fighter might be back on the table as an option for me just because of the variety and the variability and the tactical mindedness I'll have using weapon masteries in combat.
very simple, though, but that is by design, as you mentioned. That's had a tremendous impact in playtest and even your home game.
Oh, the weapon mastery transforms every battle. And again, we had to make sure that the complexity level was low because of how often it can happen. And I can say in our playtests that it has succeeded at delivering the fun and the tactical interest that we wanted. I, in the playtest, spent most of my time playing a fighter, and I had a ball creating, especially as the fighter was higher level and had more and more masteries unlocked. I loved being able to play this mini game of, all right, first I want to use this weapon because of this mastery property. Then my next attack will be this one where I can exploit what I did with the previous weapon.
Yeah, correct. Battlemaster is still coming for anybody who thought it wasn't happening. Battlemaster is still in the game on top of all of this. So you can do all the things we're talking about with weapon mastery with Battlemaster maneuvers.
Super fun.
The new Player's Handbook is available for pre-order right now on D&D Beyond. You can find that link in the video description. And
all right, we have one more video. This is on the new Feats. I need to get a drink real quick, so I'm going to run an ad. I've never done this on YouTube before, so bear with me. I'm going to insert an ad here. You're not going to miss anything. Take this opportunity to go get yourself a drink or something. I'll be right back. This is we'll give it a shot. I feel like the ad's working. I don't know. Is it? I don't know. Well, thanks, guys. I'll be right back. Yeah. All right. I don't really get ads anymore either. It's just like an option that they have here in YouTube. It says insert ad. I assumed that just means that like we would run like Twitch, where like you would just put an ad in there. But I guess maybe not. I don't know. Ad, check out Nerd Immersion Plays. Yeah, you can check out Nerd Immersion Plays if you want. Nerd Immersion Plays is where I upload all of my actual play content. Yeah, it might be only in the replay. Either way, we're back. I got my drink. Let's dive into Feats.
So when you're making your character now, you will first choose your class, the most important choice you make for your character, and then you will flesh out your character's origin. And so
I play for YouTube Premium too. I feel like as a YouTuber, kind of like I'm just paying it forward, you know? Oops. Turned off the sound.
cleric or wizard. And then you think, well, how did I get there? What did I do before I was a member of that class? And what do I know about my character's childhood? And so it's when you start pondering those questions.
Wait a minute. Get these closed captions. Look at the kitty! Look at the kitty in the wizard hat!
That you turn toward the character origins chapter. And you will essentially be going back in time in your character's backstory. So again, you start with your class, then you'll ponder, well, what was my character's background? And background is all about not only what you did prior to becoming an adventurer, but also where you did it. You know, were you a sailor? Were you a criminal? Were you an acolyte in a temple? Were you a sage? And then you keep going back in time in your character's origin to your birth. And that's when you then ponder your character's species. And your species choice and your background choice together combine to give you a number of critical game capabilities that will really help flesh out your character. Background has far more weight for your character now than it did in the 2014 rules. People in the Unearthed Arcana process got to see a preview of this, where in addition to giving you proficiencies...
Maybe I'm just chiming in here. Does it sound like 1.5 times speed to you? Maybe my ears are just so tuned to it, but it doesn't sound like that to me.
As backgrounds previously did, backgrounds also now all give you a feat at first level. They also determine ability score bonuses for you when you make your character. And these are ability score bonuses that really are rising up out of how your characters spent their time prior to embarking on the wilds of adventure. And those two things in particular, the ability score adjustments that backgrounds bring, as well as the feat, mean your background will have an effect on your character for your entire career. And that was something that was not necessarily the case in 2014 backgrounds, except for perhaps the proficiencies you got. Right? You would still enjoy those throughout your career. But now there are more parts of your character that are forever affected by your character's background. Now, to support the use of feats at first level, we have now divided feats up into categories. Because we don't want a first level character to be plunged into the deep end of the feat pool. We want you to be able to sample feats and to have that.
They love this piece of Ravenloft art. They really do. They come back to it like, I mean, it looks like it's the full page art on the front of the feat. If you look at the left, screen's kind of blurred. But right, it talks about feat description. So I'm guessing this is like the start of the feat chapter. But either way, they love pan into this.
Sampling be curated so that the feat you get from your background is from a special selection of feats.
I love this art too. I don't know what this is. It's definitely some sort of acid, right? Maybe vitriolic sphere or something. Also, I feel like we don't see enough wands as like arcane focuses. We see a lot of staves, or like rings, but not a lot of wands.
That are appropriate for a starting character. And so those feats are now in a category called origin feats, appropriately enough, because you get them
could be
as a
acid
part of your
splash,
character
right?
origin. Now, even though they're in that category, later on, if you decide to go deeper into feats, you could potentially choose other origin feats for your character as well. But to start, each person gets just one origin feat that's provided by their background. In addition to...
I mean, well, couldn't you also make the point, Art, that Pathfinder 2E's feats are a ripoff of 3.5's feats? Because you could make that same choice too. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I know it's not even really, from what we've seen, the D&D, the 2014 stuff, it doesn't really feel like a ripoff of the same way Pathfinder does their feats, because it's not, from what we've seen, the origin feats, it's like a collection of maybe 10 or so feats, and it doesn't give me Pathfinder 2e vibes. And I've played enough Pathfinder 2e at this point to know the difference, where it doesn't give me the same kind of vibes that Pathfinder does, if that makes sense. Origin feats are basically just, they didn't want to give anybody a 1-up on ability scores at level 1. That's essentially what an origin feat is. It's just a feat that doesn't include an ability score improvement of any kind. So like skilled, for example, or tough, or magic initiate. Things like, maybe not magic initiate, I'm not sure, but like things that just give you a mechanical change to something but don't increase your ability score at all. It also seems like from what we've seen in Unearthed Arcana is that all feats that you get from level 4 plus will give you the feats benefit and a +1 to a certain amount of an ability score. So it seems like they've kind of done away with the concept of a feat that either gives you, some give you +1 to an ability score, others don't. It seems like now if it's a feat that you get at level 4 plus, it's going to give you a +1 to an ability score of some choice, depending on what makes sense for the feat. And the origin ones just don't give that to you. And that's kind of how you distinguish it. Again, most of these origin feats are going to likely be chosen at level 1. But obviously you could choose to take them at later levels if you wish. And then again, if you're a human, you'll likely also get an additional feat at level 1. So you'll start with 2.
Proficiencies your background is providing, as well as the ability score adjustments. Now, those ability score adjustments to me are really juicy because of the flexibility that we provide. And this is a flexibility that goes beyond anything that we previewed in Unearthed Arcana. So what we now do in each background is we provide 3 ability options. And then you as a player decide, am I going to put +2 in one of those 3, and you choose which of the 3, and then +1 in one of the other 2, or am I going to do +1 in all 3? So here's an example. The Acolyte, if you decided your character, whatever class you're a part of,
Acolyte?
spent their formative years serving in a temple in some capacity, you could choose Acolyte. And the Acolyte background tells you that the 3 abilities that you have the option to adjust are Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. And you have total freedom in which of those you decide gets the +2, which one gets a +1, or if you maybe don't want to make that choice and just give...
Oh, I know he's saying acolyte, but I've never heard it referred to as acolyte. I've always heard it pronounced acolyte, so that's just throwing me. So, like, acolyte sounds like it's OCOLYTE. Acolyte, not acolyte.
+1 to all 3.
Right.
We did this because we want backgrounds to interlock with as many appropriate classes as possible. Previously, when we previewed this approach to backgrounds of them providing ability score adjustments, one of the downsides of the playtest version is it kind of hard-locked the backgrounds to specific classes.
Yeah.
And we did not want to proceed with that because in some ways that was recreating the exact problem that we were getting away from 2014 species, because in 2014 these ability score adjustments existed inside the playable species, and one of the reasons we moved it out of there is we didn't like how that drove certain species to be combined with certain classes. We wanted people to feel more free to mix and match. And so here, rather than just recreate the same restriction, we now do have a little bit of a restriction, but you have tremendous amount of flexibility within it. I mean, because you have 3 of the game's 6 abilities to play with, no matter which background you choose. And really, it's just which 3 changes from background to background. And we made sure that there was a broad range of character building options in the different backgrounds to support many different character builds. Like, if I jump ahead in the chapter to the guide, for instance, the guide's 3 abilities are Dexterity, Constitution, and Wisdom. That combo means the guide is actually a happy background for a number of different classes, particularly because everyone is happy to have Constitution. Really, any background that has Constitution as one of the 3 will work with pretty much any class. And this was something very much on our minds as we created these trios in each of the backgrounds to really make sure that the 16 backgrounds in this book provide a huge array of character building options. And now if someone wants to go beyond the 16 background options in the Player's Handbook, the new Dungeon Master's Guide provides guidance under the DM's supervision on creating additional backgrounds. But in the player's handbook itself, there
Okay, so custom backgrounds and creation of background rules in the Dungeon Master's Guide officially confirmed. Not that it was, which is different because custom backgrounds were part of the player's handbook in 2014, but now it seems like they're going to be part of the Dungeon Master's Guide.
there are these 16 to choose from. There are a few backgrounds that share the feats that they offer, because we did not want to force people to choose a certain background
because that was optimal.
for certain feats. Now, there are a number of feats that are, only one background offers that feat, but there are a few, and Alert is a great example of them, where the feat is offered by more than one background.
Right. Skilled is a similar one as well.
Yes, particularly because the skilled feat is so open-ended. All of these combinations of options, the feats, the ability score adjustments, the proficiencies, also the starting equipment that the backgrounds provide, mean that each background is a package of very distinct options from the other backgrounds. Of course, you can dig deeper into feats if you decide to at higher levels. When everyone reaches 4th level, they get ability score increase, just as they did in the 2014 Player's Handbook. But ability score increase is now itself a feat. And just like in 2014, you have the option of taking that feat or selecting a different one. And because we now have given everyone a taste of feats at 1st level, we wanted to make sure that this book had more feats available, which is why there are 75 of them in this book, so that if you do decide to go into the fun customization world of feats, there's more there for you to play with, and the feats have all been enhanced, in some cases completely redesigned. And then there's the whole other half of your origin, your species.
Right, and we've got a lot of new things in species. We've got new additions. So the orc has joined, Goliaths have joined, and
The Aasimar. And those 3 brand new options, and they join.
We're talking a lot about species and a lot about backgrounds on a video that's... Oh, okay. I only saw the first half of it. Now I don't feel bad, because I only saw the part that said New Feats is the title. I didn't realize it was New Feats, Backgrounds, and Species. I changed. Take that back. Strike that from the record.
Join, of course, classic options like human, elf, halfling, gnome, the tiefling, the dragonborn are still with us as well.
I'd love it if Genasi made it into this book as well, but it doesn't sound like it's going to.
And every one of these species has been revisited, has been enhanced. A number of these enhancements people got to see in the Unearthed Arcana process, with, like the Dragonborn having an enhanced breath weapon, and then when they get to higher level, even gaining the ability to sprout wings and fly. And even humans and halflings have been revisited and in some of their traits redesigned.
The Dragonborn are super Dragonborn. The Goliaths are very Goliath, because now they're tied to giants. Not surprisingly, if you have the background being a cloud giant in your heritage, then you can kind of Misty Step away, teleport away, because you're more of a trickster. But it's all based off like Hill Giant, Storm, Stone. All of it has different.
I like this a lot, not making the Goliath kind of generic. That's kind of what they did, same thing with the Dragonborn, right? Like the base 5e ones that we had, like Goliath was kind of like base amalgam giant, and Dragonborn was kind of amalgam of dragons. Dragons are now very much specific. You choose, and it feels like your decision of what dragon ancestry you have is impactful. Same thing with what they're saying now, it seems, with the giants, right? You choose, are you a stone giant Goliath or a fire giant or whatever it might be.
Abilities that you can choose from.
And that is a part of the theme that we had with the species, which was to really lean into the fantasy of each one. This is why dwarves now have tremor sense that they can use a certain number of times a day, where we...
Which I think is fantastic. If you missed that, dwarves now have tremor sense.
Again, wanting to lean harder into what is the resonant fantasy of each of these peoples. And part of that with dwarves, with their connection to the earth, well, let's give them this really remarkable ability a certain number of times per day to sense things through the earth itself. Their dark vision has also gotten better. Dwarves and orcs both have dark vision out to 120 feet in the new Player's Handbook, really driving home that certain peoples have spent, at least their ancestors have spent more time underground than some of the other peoples. Humans, I mentioned, have been redesigned with the origin feats in the game in mind, because now if you choose human, you get to choose an additional origin feat for your character. So you'll not only get the origin feat of your background, but also one of your choice. And humans now each day start off with heroic inspiration. And also, people will see that because we want each...
That human basically sounds almost identical to what was in the Unearthed Arcana.
Species to really bring its own fantasy to life. They're very asymmetrical in how we have designed them. So some of them have choice points in them, where you mentioned the Goliath earlier, where you might be picking a type of giant that you're associated with, or Dragonborn have their different breath weapon options. But then we have others like the Halfling, the Dwarf, the Orc, where there aren't choice points like that because their fantasy didn't demand that in the design, but it's also because we did not want every single one to have the same complexity level. Just as our classes and subclasses have different complexity levels, the species have different complexity levels as well.
So we talk a lot about meeting that fantasy, that wish fulfillment. Mechanically, that's done as well in action economy. The Goliath, being that it is now tied closer to giants, you can get big. Once you hit a certain level, you can go one size larger. But you can do this as a bonus action. You're not taking a full action to have that happen for you. You're just getting big and then possibly attacking and terrifying a group. Dragonborn is the same thing, and this was a change that we saw in a previous book, but you can now use your breath weapon not only just get more powerful over time, but if you take the attack action, one of those attacks can be the breath weapon. Absolutely. So you're not sacrificing, if you're a fighter, a bunch of your attacks, that could have been possibly more effective by using the breath weapon. You're just layering it on to what you can already do.
Great adjustments here. Again, I think this is kind of an accessibility and like ease of use, and not taking away the fun thing you could do is kind of a function we're seeing of this adjustment here. As mentioned, right, Goliath being able to get larger as a bonus action. Dragonborn replacing an attack with a breath weapon, meaning that if you only have one attack, from like the attack action, then it's no different from you to use your breath weapon as it would be to use a spell or whatever else you would be. But if you're a fighter and you have 3 attacks, using your whole round to do 1 breath weapon is kind of a waste. But if it's part of that and you can follow up with multiple attacks, that's pretty good.
And another example of us really deepening the fantasy and giving people more options is in the Aasimar, where before you had to pick a single celestial revelation, and that was true for your character forever. You now get to change that choice every time you use it, because we figured, well, an Aasimar who is descended from celestials sure might have some days where they're in the mood to shine with light, but they might also have some days where they're more on the vengeful end of the celestial spectrum and choose one of the other celestial revelation options.
So significant changes to species. We've got several more species to work with, and a lot of layered on abilities that kind of hit that, again, that wish fulfillment of like this.
If you missed that too, that was the Aasimar not having to choose. Like they had like the 3 different forms that they could activate. There was like the dread form with like the skeletal wings that like spooked people, could make them frightened. There was like 2 other shiny ones. One got you like angel wings and you could fly. Another one did like a halo that lets you do fire damage. It sounds like now you get to pick each time you use that ability which one you use, not just locking in at character creation.
This is what I want. I want to be a big character, a big Goliath. I can get big. Bonus action, I'm huge. Now I'm just going to pummel.
The character creation chapter in this book includes a sidebar that explains how to use backgrounds and species from older books. Because over the last decade, there have been several different approaches to where you get your ability score increase, do you get a feat or not. We have a rule in the character creation chapter on how to use backgrounds or species from other books that don't appear in this book. So any species or background that appears in this book that also appeared in an earlier book, the version in the New Player's Handbook is now the canonical version.
Okay, that answers that. If like it was Aasimar or Dragonborn from a previous book, new version overwrites that.
But if there's, say, a species or background in an older book that is not in the New Player's Handbook and you would still like to use it, you can. And again, the character creation chapter provides guidance on how you can do that.
Oh, so there is guidance there. So if like I did want to play a Genasi, which was in like the updated Mordenkainen's book that provided all those race updates. If you want to use those as now species in a 2024 book, it sounds like that 2024 book will have the guidance you need on how to use those, which is pretty nice.
The New Player's Handbook is available for pre-order right now on D&D Beyond. You can...
All right. So that was all of the official D&D videos that have been released today.
Find that link in the video description, and you can also...
Sorry about that. Now, there is one other video called the new 2024 Player's Handbook Reveal. But I think this might be... This is on D&D Beyond's channel. I'm wondering if this is any different than the video we just watched. I think it's just the first 40 minutes of... Yeah, okay. It looks like it's just the parsed down version of what we just watched. without any of the Dungeon Master Guide and Monster Manual stuff. So it's just that first bit. Okay. So we don't need to go over that video as well, which is good because we're already, what are we at? How long have we been doing this? 2 hours? All right. That's not actually too bad. A couple other things people mentioned that might be worth checking out is that there is supposed to be possibly a new character sheet coming for D&D Beyond, but I did get an email. Let me see if I can pull it up from Roll20 about them releasing a new character sheet, or working on releasing a new character sheet for D&D 5e. So let me go ahead and pull that up. Here it is. New D&D character. Preview the new D&D sheet. All right. Roll20's email here says the new D&D character sheet is now available to preview during a public alpha period with a modern design, enhanced spell and inventory management, greater customization and automation, and the ability for both D&D 2014 and 2024 rules. You'll fall in love with D&D all over again. The beta period will kick off in July. Bring with the new character builder a wealth of new character sheet functionality. Also is a complete mobile support and redesigned reading experience. All right, let's go ahead and pull this up. Here it is. We have D&D on there. Here you can see the new sheet. D&D 2024 on Roll20, the ultimate experience. Try the sheet. Let's see. Oh, okay. Create character. Oh my goodness. I don't want to have to log in and do all this nonsense. Oh, what the hell was my Roll20 login? I haven't logged in a Roll20 in years. All right. Okay, we have available ready-to-play characters. We have a variety of them here. Does not look like we can create our own. So let's pick this Yonk, the level 20 barbarian that's a duck person. Let's pick that. It's kind of smooth, guys. I'm kind of digging this. Here we can see all of our breakdown. We have our ability scores, proficiency bonuses. Here's combat. I don't see any actual like stuff on here. There's rage. We can check that. Oh, look, it updates to show the defenses, resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. You check it, it automatically populates that. It also shows that these go to advantage, strength checks, and strength saving throws. That's pretty cool. Inventory. Oh, let's equip our short sword. And if we go back to combat, it does. Here it is. Short sword with strength and dex. Go ahead and roll an attack. Roll our damage. There it is. Shows up in a little combat log over here. We've got our different things. All right, can we level up? Oh, it's not giving me the option to level up past level 1. Oh, we could change our ability scores if we want to. Can't really do anything. Now, it gave me the option, I thought, when I went to select. Sorry, also, my dog is barking. It looks like my wife and the kids just got home. Can we choose a higher level? Oh, start your adventure at 15, let's say. Oh, okay, it doesn't let me level up, but I can start at level 15. You can see that it looks like dexterity saving throws. These are all at advantage. We have our different actions: intimidating presence, retaliation. Do we know what his... Oh, he's a gnome. Okay, it's just got a picture of a duck. Here's our different options. Various features and traits. Yeah, it's just coded as a gnome. I gotta say, I gotta give Roll20 props on this. I think it is very well done. What's up?
Ice cream time.
Okay, I'm gonna come up. We'll come up right in just a second. We're like, okay, all right, bye on. So yeah, I mean, not only did Roll20 just buy Demiplane, Hi. Give me 1 sec. I'll be right up, okay? Oh, boy. Hi, guys. What's up?
I got a really cool.
I'm
Lego
live streaming
set.
right now. You got a cool Lego set?
Yeah, I got a cool Lego set that Wesley has.
Okay. Can I finish this? Guys. Hello?
Yeah.
Can I finish this? And then I'll
What
come.
is
We're going to go get... It's a book, dude. Take it with you. Go with your mom.
Let me see.
I'll be right up. Sorry, guys. We're wrapping it up anyway, so. But anyway, yes, they did buy Demiplane. And now they have this new free character sheet update. It is nice that it has the roll log off on the side. I'm digging that. You've got little stuff here to write out any of your stuff for your character. Compendium is where you'd pull up access to any of your character stuff. You can auto set advantage, disadvantage from the character sheet. You can whisper your GM from the top. It's not bad for what it is, honestly. But you know, you see how your different rage options. It's pretty good, honestly. But is it gonna make me use Roll20? No, it's not. 100% not gonna switch over to Roll20. You know, it was the first, and it's been around the longest, and that counts for something. But I definitely prefer other virtual tabletops, or honestly, just theater of the mind over a Zoom call, personally. But yeah. So, yeah. That looks like the Demiplane sheet for Pathfinder. Yeah, it's very much inspired by that, I believe, because of the fact that they now own Demiplane. So, yeah, I'm going to call it quits here, guys. We might come back and then watch through. There's so many other videos with people doing the different previews of different, we talked about those earlier, people doing the different previews of aspects of the 2024 stuff. It like I said, I'm in a weird spot because, like I said, I have the book to do reviews for the future, so it's like a weird thing to talk about it. But yeah, we're definitely going to be. So tomorrow they're going to be doing. Watsy's going to be doing another video. I think it's Fighter is tomorrow's video. I will be doing that video basically right at around noon when that video goes live. I will be live streaming, doing a live react to that one as well. So be sure to come hang out here. Be sure to keep an eye on the social media as well as the YouTube. So we'll be doing a video right as that one goes live on tomorrow. We might be doing the same thing on Thursday and Friday, depending on how timing and scheduling works out. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I got more videos coming. You're going to see videos from me basically every day of the week. On top, you might be seeing multiple videos because I have other content that I want to make that I'll be peppering in between here. Again, if you missed that, I will be at Gen Con if you're going to be out there. I got to place my orders for all of my swag right now to bring out coffee mugs and dice and things like that. So anyway, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. If you haven't already, let me know them here live in chat. And I will see you all next time. Thank you all for coming out. It's been a fun return to live streaming.